like the company. Between health and would call the parliamentary experience
at the tail end of the week this Friday. What are we looking at in Nairobi? Hasn't really started in most parts of the city. We're likely to see a pickup of traffic on the Thika Superhighway, it being the weekend, and we'll probably have in and outbound action here. But we'll be here to let you know what that looks like in a short while. Looks like folks are just waking up. That Pangani underpass is where you'll see most of the traffic at this point in time. Coming out of Westlands on Waiaki Way, not too bad at all. Mombasa is looking pretty good as well as you're getting into the city. And into the CBD is where you see the most action for now. We're still starting to see the rumblings of traffic on Jogo Road, likely to get heavier as we go along. Let's see what Friday turns out to be this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Or text on 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Good morning, welcome
to
to
start
Kenya's
your
biggest
day.
conversation. Happy Friday, wherever you are tuned in from. City Muga,
Yes.
how are you?
Fine. Yes, I'm fine.
What is it?
Life is good. After 17 days, the week has come to
It
an
has
end.
come to an end.
Yes.
Hayawi.
Yes.
Hey. This one has been one long one. And still, it'll be 3 days before we get to the end of today.
Life can be hard.
Hey.
Problem in the finish.
Kabisa, imagine. Hey. Ndu,
Yeah.
na wewe je?
Mimi J.
Hujambo.
Sijambo. How are you?
Sina matata.
Oh no. Hakuna Matata. Hey.
Continue.
Means no worries for the rest of your days. Dun, 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 dun. It's a problem-free philosophy. Hakuna Matata.
Okay.
The Hakuna Matata is the same
It has
as...
to be Tata. Can't be Tata.
It can't be Tata.
It's
All
just Tara. It's gotta be
Tara.
Matara. Ni Matara. Tuko pamoja.
Tiko Pamoja.
Very good.
How are you?
I am fine. Yes, I'm happy that it's Friday. Finally, tumefika hapa.
You've gone from Tata to Finery.
Yeah. Finally, tumefika hapa.
Okay.
Mungu ametuleta mpaka hapa. Ametutoa mbali sana. Mbali tumetoka.
So, sasa...
Hala tumefika.
Yes.
Ndio maana tunasema kwamba wewe ni Ebeneza.
So what we're saying,
Hey,
you know, yesterday we were among. Today we are within.
today we within.
Yesterday you're
Yes.
among, today you're within, tomorrow you'll be. And we don't know.
So
Let's
wait
get
for
there
tomorrow.
first.
We will go day by day, my friend. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. So the conversations that we'll be having today. The other day, a Kenyan man made history when he went and hoisted Kenya's flag way up there at the top of the world. Top of the world, all right? His name is James Kagambi, KG. He's a former teacher and a top mountaineer. His sounds, his career path, his looks, everything, City Muga.
telling you.
Double ganger.
We need to find a picture and put it on the screen.
This is City Muga, by the way. We'll get that picture. Ednah, let's get that picture of the man without just looking like City. So he'll be here at 7 o'clock telling us how he conquered Mount Everest. How old is he? How old are you, City?
64.
Yeah, he's that age. And he went all the way. And he came back down.
And he didn't fly by helicopter.
No, he didn't.
He walked by his feet.
All the way up there and all the way down. So he'll be here. And he'll tell us his story, what inspired him to do this. That's at 7 o'clock. At 8 a.m., let's have a conversation about the port of Mombasa, the economy of Mombasa. Did Kenya's Auditor General misread China's standard gauge railway contracts? There were reports of what the Auditor General said about the SGR and the contracts and all. But there's somebody who is a director for China Africa Research Initiative at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, Deborah Brotigham. She'll be joining us via video link at 8 a.m. to have this conversation because she says that, ain't that report by the Auditor General? Nah, you've misread. There's a lot that has been done by the Chinese contractors and lenders and government support in this country. And issues of whether or not our port is security for the SGR.
Not us.
Not us. Where's Kalonzo Musyoka? Who knows?
Does he know? Sorry. Sorry.
Those close to him know.
Okay.
One of them will be joining us in the studio today. He's legal advisor. His name is Kevin Katisia. He'll be here with us this morning at 9 a.m. to talk to us about Kalonzo Musyoka, the game plan. So this is a senior counsel who says that he has not seen the contract that his party signed in Azimio. Then he walks out and says, you know what, I'm presenting myself as a presidential candidate and a wiper going alone. So the people who've been advising him, one person who is in that kitchen cabinet will be here in the studio and he'll tell us, so munataka nini sasa? Mumeambia mzee namna gani? What exactly are you advising him? He is Kalonzo's legal advisor, Kevin Katisia, in the studio at 9. Keep it here for that and more. Comment.
Okay.
And monkey business.
And monkey business. All right, let me give you global numbers. 530 million. So we've seen an increase, about 2 million cases on the globe in the last 48 hours, right? 530,313,294. That's what the global figure stands at as of today. Let's look at what's happening in Kenya. 63 new cases. Positivity rate now of 3%. All right, the highest that we had seen over the last 11 weeks. Then now that we, collected on Monday was 2.2%. On Sunday, 2.2%. Now today, 5 days later, 3% in terms of positivity rate. The issue that we're looking at here, folks, is that the sample size is still considerably low in terms of numbers. We're looking at a sample size of 2,075. You got 63 cases from that. Comparatively, it's a high number.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because we've been doing the same kind of numbers and you're only getting 1 or 2 cases.
Absolutely. This is the problem. And so saying, okay, the calls continue to be that vaccination happens, but at the same time that there be mass testing so that you have a profile of what the community looks like now. So then you can make a decision on what to do next. Now, the worrying thing is that folks are presenting with symptoms. Okay. Before we had, your usual run-of-the-mill asymptomatic cases, and it was not an issue. But now we have folks, again, presenting with symptoms. But then also look at the change in weather.
Yep.
Look at the change in weather patterns over the last 2 weeks. I mean, we're seeing the temperatures dropping a little bit, some rain coming back in. Again, could be linked to that in terms of what the flu carries, and then will it carry a strain of COVID? Okay, so that's what's happening with that. Global firms are warning of a sluggish China demand due to lengthy COVID curbs. Everybody's still saying, you know what, guys, you're not being fair to us. You've still not opened up. Can you just get over with this thing? 2 months into harsh COVID-19 lockdowns that have choked global supply chains, China's economy is staggering back to its feet. But businesses, from retailers to chip makers, are warning of slow sales as consumers in the country slam the brakes on spending. So they're saying, wait, we've not been out for some time. are we the ones that are going to be the drivers of this? Just give us a minute. Car sales in the world's largest auto market have slowed dramatically. Gamers are buying fewer consoles and people are unwilling to replace their existing smartphones, laptops and TVs as prolonged COVID curbs crimp spending power and put more people out of jobs. The current China lockdown has implications to both supply and demand. You have very large cities that are in full lockdown, focusing really on other important things for the citizens there. So it's impacting our demand. So you're hearing what they're saying. You have huge populations of folks who would ordinarily have served as a market for these global goods and services. That's not happening because folks are not outside. So we can understand that they need to take care of their domestic situation as concerns COVID, but it's hitting us. So it's not so much the folks in China that are complaining, but those that who would ordinarily have imported or exported to serve the Chinese population. And they're the ones that are having a difficult time with this right now.
We'll keep track of what's happening in the country and around the world with regards to COVID. We are live streaming the show like we always do, SpiceFM KE on YouTube and Facebook or www.spicefm.co.ke. Be a member of our online community. Say hello to us and tell us where you're tuned in from this morning. We'll do our usual roll call after we take a look at the weather forecasts.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions after a night of rain in Nairobi, highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. It's cloudy at 15 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14. It's mostly cloudy at 16 in Nyeri, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 23 as well in a cloudy Eldoret, currently at 14, and we'll see lows of 13 today. It's already raining in Mombasa. Maybe it has all night at 25. We'll see highs of 31. 31 will also be the high in a rainy Malindi, currently at 27. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And Kagambi mostly cloudy at 18, highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's raining this morning in Kampala at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 17. And Dar es Salaam is clear at 23. We'll see highs of 32. 10 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 20 and lows of 8. While Lagos raining as well this morning at 24. We'll go to highs of 31 through Friday. 30 will be the high in a currently mostly clear Kinshasa at 22. And looking out into Beijing, afternoon Friday is 32 degrees. We'll see highs of 35 and lows of 19. Paris is cloudy this morning at 13, highs of 21 and lows of 9. And it's mostly clear at 15 in London, highs of 20 and lows of 10 in New York. Thursday night, cloudy at 18. We'll see highs of 19, back to lows of 18.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
"20 minutes after 6.
Mornings
Done
done right.
I love the level of
94
maturity and wisdom from CT Muga. How's that for the morning? Michael George HND says, okay. Narok is locked in. Lukashenko says good morning. Why Bubere Mumias? Oh, you're here. Faristo says good morning. Good morning from High Tech City in Hybridad. That's where Rehoboam is this morning. Good morning. Tuned in from Komarok, locked until the end. Emmanuel Weritab is tuned in. Alex Wajami says good morning. Mwea is loud and clear. Bushman from Kisi says, I start my day with the hope of a second liberation. Oh, all right. God bless you too. Good morning. Welcome back to the Situation Room. Paul Marimba is with us today. Sigouette. Where is Sigouette? Sigouette is where Dennis Kirowe is, and he says he's getting us loud and clear. I'd really like to know where that is because I like the name.
Sigouette.
Yeah. Do you know where it is?
Yeah, he'll tell us.
He'll tell us. I thought you were looking it up.
He knows where it is.
Eliud Mjumwa
There's
says...
a KMTC there.
Okay.
There's a primary school there. There's a hospital there. It's an entire... it's in Soin constituency.
It's in Soin.
Sigowet Soin constituency is an electoral constituency in Kericho County, Kenya. One of 6 constituencies of Kericho County.
Thank you.
The
It's okay.
MP is Honorable Bernard Kipsengeret Koros.
Okay, thank you very much.
Their economy
Oh,
is
Lord.
okay.
We're very grateful. Thank you. We know that you do your things in completeness. It's great. Tuning from Mombasa, that's where Eliud is this morning. Chichi. Hey, my cousin is called Chichi. Chichi Rose is tuned in this morning. Waiting for the wisdom you guys spew every morning, Monday to Friday. Asante Sana, good morning. Wilfred, we see you. Good morning. Robbie Robin says Pamoja. Atieno is also tuned in. Pauline Shiro says good morning. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, indeed. Ready for the day. Many more people online this morning. Kip Koech tuning from Dubai this morning. And in Loresho, Wawero Ngeve is tuned in. Robert Rungu, Ondicho, Odero, Atieno, another Atieno. Davey says good morning, tuned and listening in. And LeBron Obimba says good morning, tuned in from Malindi and from County 037 is Kakamega. And Zachary is tuned in. Karibuni sana.
Everybody, welcome. By the way, George Taita, our friend from Germany, has been in the country. The other day, he said he's finished his business in Nakuru. He'll be in Nairobi. He'll tell us.
He will definitely tell us.
Spew the wisdom.
We are in Tanzania. TZ.
Okay.
Tanzania.
Tanzania. All right?
On which side? The Tanganyika side or the Zanzibar side?
The Tanzania side.
Yeah.
Simple, straightforward proverb. Even flies have ears.
No. Oh, okay.
I was waiting for you to give me a biological lesson on that one.
No, I don't have.
Even flies have ears. Jeez.
You wish they'd used them. Okay, but
By the way,
Can you imagine the noise that thing then hears? Close to its wings. All the time. Just its wings flapping alone. And they're right there.
imagine a
It's like
fly
sitting
looking
at
at
the-
us and saying, look at
At
these
the
human
engine of an
beings."
airplane.
Yeah.
Yes,
Those propeller ones.
that's how we look at flies. They look at us and look at that mass of humanity. Look at how it's moving. Don't these people consider how difficult it must be to move?
Let me
Just
go
to
sit
lift
on
one
his
leg.
arm and try and see if I can get some
Yes,
food.
sit for a
Before
while
I be
and figure,
swatted to death.
not useful. Yes,
Hey. Even flies have ears.
even flies have ears.
Even. Let's look at the newspaper headlines this morning. www.standardmedia.co.ke. Be a member of our online community. Some premium content. What they're promoting today is this story. SIM swap. How fraudsters swindle you. Criminals register existing number on a new card to intercept notifications. Hey. Hey. They register existing number on a new card to intercept notifications. Kidogo. All your money.
So that's when they do the whole call and whatever.
Yeah.
To change, send this number to.
There was a
blah,
story
blah,
the other day of someone who just received a call. It was a police officer, remember?
blah. Yeah.
A police officer. Actually, what was that story?
How many was moved from his bank accounts and his mobile money wallet kind of thing.
It was, yes, money came and went.
And somebody called him and he actually gave the PIN or something like this. And this enabled them to change and re-register, actually, same thing, re-register his line on a new card, and they basically wiped his... It was 500,000 shillings, yes.
Just like that,
500,000 shillings
gone,
in his account.
clean,
Yes.
whoop, without him knowing or realizing what's happening.
Yeah.
That was a crazy story.
Don't give anybody your stuff.
Oh, yes. So what are you looking at in the papers?
Okay, so I mean, can't be ignored. On the front page of the Standard, Ruto says, "Forgive me." Many questions coming out of this. The National Prayer Breakfast, the last of this particular administration, was held yesterday. And some of the things that came out on the day President Uhuru promised to hand over power peacefully in August. His deputy sought forgiveness for any wrongs committed while he served as his number two. With Raila Odinga's running mate, Martha Karua, calling out the hypocrisy of politicians. William Ruto says, and I quote, "I ask for your forgiveness, and I forgive everybody. I want us to go into this election free of the debt of hurt and free of the debt of forgiveness." Raila Odinga was not there as he's campaigning in the western part of the country. But William Ruto, Deputy President William Ruto, called on Martha Karua to come up and give a few remarks in his stead. The event was brought to the fore the question of leaders' failure to practice what they preach. Ruto asked for Uhuru's forgiveness and conceded that he might not have been the best deputy president. For close to 2 decades, the breakfast has presented an opportunity for leaders to put aside partisan politics and pray together for themselves and the country. But the event has also brought to the fore the question of leaders' failure to practice what they preach. The hypocrisy was pointed out by Azimio La Umoja One Kenya presidential running mate Martha Karua, who called for the actions of politicians to match their words. Karua picked a cue from Nyeri Catholic Archbishop Anthony Muheria, who said the prayer breakfast was without meaning if the leaders did not learn to forgive and love each other. Could it be we were too used to gathering for prayer but not mean it? Muheria had asked earlier. We pray that moving forward, and especially after these prayers, that our actions match our words. How we pray, especially for us leaders, that even as we compete, we do so with ideas, not insults, Martha Karua said. That we lessen the tension in the nation by the way we treat one another. It was the 19th prayer breakfast. It was held under the cloud of a broken relationship between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy President William Ruto. The tension between the two leaders was ever present in the room as speaker after speaker called for forgiveness between leaders for the sake of the country. To followers of the past prayer days and prayer breakfast, the sitting arrangement could not have been the first sign that things were different. Rather, would have been the first sign that things were different. We saw that they sat at different tables. And it would seem as though the two political factions sat differently on different tables. Sitting at the head table this time was President Kenyatta, Chief Justice Martha Koome, and Attorney General Kara Kariuki. This arrangement contrasted with what Kenyans had seen over the past, where over the past years of the Uhuru-Ruto tenure, with the secret out that Ruto and Uhuru were estranged, all the pretenses were dropped. But if either of them was uncomfortable with the arrangement, they did not show it. Ruto happily chatted with his colleagues, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi and Kenneth Lusaka. Uhuru drummed away at the table he was occupying, spent some time writing at some point in conversation with the Justice. Ruto asked for Uhuru's forgiveness and conceded that he may not have been the best, but he said he had been wronged as well. If President Kenyatta heard anything of Ruto's apology and plea for forgiveness, he did not acknowledge it. Rather, when Ruto was speaking, he seemed to be reading through his prepared speech and making edits to it. His speech was short and hurried. Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga was absent from the event, campaigning in Western Kenya yesterday, as Ruto's partners were at Western as well. Muheria had said in his sermon that Kenya is still lost in the wilderness of selfish interests. As a result, the coming election was a storm, he said. And I'm finished with, like the disciples in the Sea of Galilee, we find ourselves facing a storm. We see elections coming and it's a storm brewing. Our ship is being rocked by the waves, by the rising exchange of ungodly words and incitement. And he said, this is the time to come together.
So they forgive each other, they pray for one another, they mean well for the country, they mean well for each other.
Yep.
On that day, they definitely do. The following day is a different day.
Totally. You're going far to the following day. The evening of said day, things might be different, depending on where you are and what you are doing.
And what you need to say.
The perfect things to say at a particular place at a particular time. Questions
Praying for you doesn't mean I don't fight you.
Sorry?
Praying for you doesn't mean I don't fight you.
No, not necessarily. But then
no, if your destiny is to be killed by me, who am I to change that destiny?
Wow.
Actually, Eric,
I'm only here to fulfill the prophecy.
You have a very valid point, because when someone says they're praying for you, what on earth are they praying for?
They could be praying for your death.
Yes.
Yes. Doesn't mean they're not praying for you. The assumption is that if somebody prays for you, that they mean well.
I wish you the very best.
In what exactly?
In what?
In my opinion, the very best is for you to be dead.
And the very best is for actually me.
Yes, to kill you. Okay, it's 6:30. Let's look at the traffic. Kenya's biggest conversation, looking at the newspaper headlines. Everybody who's online, thank you very much. Keep saying hello.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Are you looking for employment and are tired of sending job applications without any response? Gone with no response? Tarmacking is now a thing of the past thanks to Skiza. Dial star 811 star 1 star 21 hash and subscribe to a ringback tune that reflects your qualifications only for 1.5 bob a day. And your callers will know your credentials and send you opportunities they come across.
All right, it's building up around many parts of the city. We're looking at Jogo Road, starting that build up, going then towards Landis and out towards the Kamkunji roundabouts. Coming off While Odinga Way, Gong Road looks pretty good. Valley Road into the CBD, Uhuru Highway through and through is clear. It's picking up on the Thika Superhighway, and we're seeing that going just past the Utali Drift, likely to pick up as we go along through the morning. Limuru Road looks pretty good as you come just past that Karura Avenue. As you're coming out then towards Limuru Road, you should be all right. Just picking up, like we said, and we're likely to see more traffic as the minutes tick by. But for now, you should be all right in and out. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Text 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, 27 minutes to 7. City,
Yes.
what story are you looking at?
You know, I'm a little confused here.
You are?
Yes. Because I was hoping to come across a story that I may...
That is interesting.
That
you may find interesting.
Thank you.
Look for one. Let me tell you about this one. Yes. There's it's an opinion piece written by the Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Marsabit, the Right Reverend Peter Kihara. The headline: please donate money, food to help suffering Kenyans. He is a Catholic bishop of the Diocese of Marsabit. Kenya is experiencing the impact of the worst drought ever in 40 years, pushing many families to the brink of starvation. The country has experienced 3 years of below average rainfall. The situation is compounded by the desert locust invasion in northern Kenya and the COVID-19 pandemic across the country. This has made the humanitarian need to rapidly rise in the coastal region, the northern and eastern parts of Kenya. So he says, according to the February Kenya Food Security Steering Group annual short range assessment, 3.1 million people are food insecure. It's estimated that the number of people has increased to 3.5 million people, a huge increase since August 2021, when 2.1 million Kenyans were food insecure. Due to lack of food, water, and forced migration, 1.5 million livestock have died. This is basically the grim situation. It's not just numbers. It is 3.1 million people like you and I who are food insecure. Families are leaving their homes in search of food, water, and pasture. There is a wide-scale displacement of people, leading to increased conflict among communities over grazing lands and access to basic services. In relocation areas, inflation is increasing, causing economic hardship for families. The devastating effects of the drought and the consequent adverse effects on health, nutrition, education, security seem to receive inadequate attention due to the heightened political activity ahead of the general election. There's a general sense of hopelessness and defeat among the affected communities. The impact is compromising the quality of life, stagnating economic growth, and reversing gains made towards health, nutrition, water and sanitation, education, and peaceful coexistence. The Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops has launched a drought appeal urging Kenyans in love and solidarity to contribute money and in-kind support to the communities affected by drought. The contributions will be distributed to drought-affected families. And they've come up with a pay bill. The pay bill number is 560702. That's 560702. The account number should be your name and phone number. Cash or check deposits can be made at KCB, and they have an account there. If you just go to the KCB and ask them, I want to donate to the people of Marsabit. This is a story that is just like a small one column on page 18 of the Standard. It's an appeal that's been launched by the Catholic bishops, of course being steered by the bishop who is from one of the affected areas. If you look at the political rhetoric in the country, you wouldn't believe that there are some 3.5 million people who don't know where their next meal is coming from.
No, you wouldn't reason.
And this would be a lower estimate. Let's just put it at 4 million people. There are some 4 million Kenyans who do not know where their next meal is coming from because of the situation in the country. And yet it's not a conversation.
It's not featuring.
No, our supplementary budget is allocating money to finish roads, it's allocating money to NSIS,
State House.
allocating money to State House and the Office of the President, allocating money to secure the elections, allocating money to other things.
Now, the thing is that we saw, remember yesterday when we looked at the issue of supplementary budget and what has been allocated and, you know, the law being broken, etc., etc.
Yeah.
There was the little clause that came in there when the CS Treasury was asked to explain this. And what did he say? Well, you know, the reason why we had to go over this 10% is because there's some money which is going to be allocated to drought relief efforts. There's some money that is going to be allocated to education. Not very clear. It just happens to be one of the things that is dumped into, you know, that whole basket. But it is clear here that something definite, something planned, something carried out and implemented across board is what is needed for these 3.5 million people. Kenyans in Kenya. It's not Kenyans in the diaspora. It's not Kenyans in Ethiopia. Kenyans in Kenya need
Kenya.
today. And for the next easily 12 months before we get out of this situation. It is not clear. But like you say, defense, very clear. State House, very clear. What you need, very clear. But for people who will not be able to take a breath tomorrow, it's just, you know, some amorphous coming together of things.
And we're talking about very many things being affected here. We are talking about children's education being affected, nutrition for kids who've been born now at this particular stage. Are they undernourished and malnourished as they grow up? What does that mean? Stunted growth. What does that mean about this child for the rest of their life? If they don't get proper nutrition, they are underdeveloped as they grow. What are we doing about this? Some of these conversations, we need to highlight them and we need to bring them to the fore of government. And yeah.
Until something is done.
I think there's no limit as to how often this must be spoken of. Because you can't have a lavish prayer breakfast of the magnitude we witnessed yesterday. Lavish, because that's the word to describe it. And yet there are people in this country, Kenyans, living under the same boundaries as us, same rights as we do. And they have no clue what they're going to eat the following day.
Yep.
And yet we look at the budgets that we have, and you do not see any concrete steps that the government is taking to alleviate these problems. You do not see. Now, it's being brought back to the citizenry to help other citizens. Citizens will help. But this is the burden that falls squarely on the shoulders of the government, no one else.
It can't just go unnoticed. When those people see or hear that there's a lavish prayer breakfast, like you say, when those people see or hear that just to bury a former president, you spent close to 300 million shillings, what do you know, people now start getting granular. So if you can afford to bury somebody for 300 million shillings...
You can feed me for a year, myself and my family. You can feed us for a year so that we don't have to worry about food. We can focus on something else. You can feed entire commute on that money alone. No, because, look, let's just be really honest about this thing. This food that we are talking about, that folks need on a daily basis, it is not a bank breaker. In terms of the amount of money that is required, it is not a bank breaker. For you to say 1,000 families be fed on a daily for the next 6 months until we're able to turn around this situation, it is incomparable to the amounts that are spent on a daily basis in recurrent expenditure, government, for example, of things that are not needed. Mandazi, newspaper, flowers. Let's be honest. And these are human beings with families, with children. that cannot feed. And we're not talking about luxury here. Food.
You know, of all these people who, in their campaigns, claim to have the interests of the common man at heart, do they read these stories that we read and do they know they exist? Have you heard of one presidential candidate saying, look, I'm holding this Harambe because what I want is to raise money for these people who are... Yes. I'm stopping my campaign for 2 days. This is what I'm doing.
Anything we collect is making sure that these folks can eat for the next 1 week.
Have you heard one president... Not two, one presidential candidate. Okay, let's take it further. Have you had members of parliament, MCAs, who come from these areas doing the very thing that we are saying?
No.
Have you? Because they're journalists all over the country.
Let me tell you something.
Yes.
The immediate former governor of this county where this bishop serves is the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yes, he is.
Let's just start from there. How absurd are we talking about?
You're not going to assume that he doesn't know what's going on.
How can he not know him?
He is a man from the area.
Hey, God,
okay.
I don't know.
And he was the governor.
This man grew up there. This man knows the area like the back of his hand. He was the governor. He served there. He's the man in charge of the national pass. But we are talking about raising money to feed these people. In you bangi.
It's a hot kind.
Yesterday we were talking about some of these promises that have been made. But more specifically, we're talking about utterances that politicians make with regards to how it is they want to benefit the citizenry and how they're going to right some historical injustices. The topic of discussion was the coast and the land at the coast.
Yes.
And the subject was absentee landlords.
Yes.
Well, there's a story here on page 14 of the Standard. Squatters clash with police over survey of 24,000 acres of land in Eldoret. Now, the land in question here belonged to the ex-Kanu era MP, a gentleman by the name of Mark Toh, who died in 2016. Now, there are people who've been at loggerheads with this family, him and over 1,000 squatters. Their claim is that this land was grabbed from them. That's the claim. Now, what is of interest is that when you say squatters, it means they live on the land. Okay? And they've been living on the land.
Yes.
The police were brought in to disperse them because what was being done, they were surveying it, determining boundaries, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. Police came in, the usual things. People were chased away. And of course, these squatters even have themselves organized to the point where they have a group secretary who is their spokesman. They're saying, but look, we thought these policemen are coming here to protect us. And lo and behold, this is what we are facing. Now, there are very many instances where you have squatters who have a legitimate claim. Now, we have our courts. We have processes that are supposed to determine this. Now, these are things that must be done without the politics coming into it. Because when politics comes into it, it changes the complexion of that entire discussion.
Completely.
Because you're now not really sure who is right, who is wrong, who needs to be given. You're not sure. Because everyone claims. The ones who actually have the title deed claim. The ones who don't have the title deed also claim. Now, if this thing doesn't go through lay down procedures and processes that determine these things, again, it provides a tinder keg. What you then end up doing is stoking a fire that will spread easily. Now, it starts as something small. It never ends as something small. Every time we've had issues, if you're talking of 1992, when we had so-called tribal clashes, it was about land. In 1997, the problems, it was about land. Mau Mau, the fight for independence, it was about land.
Siamba.
Issues about land must be handled really sensitively. But this is where my argument is politicians become irresponsible. They're the ones who should lead and show how this thing says, folks, let's settle this thing in the right way.
Let's have a conversation.
Precisely. We've heard what you have to say. We've heard what these people have to say. Let's follow lay down procedure so that we can arrive at an understanding.
There's a mongrel called the National Land Commission.
Yes, there is.
Created by the Constitution.
Yes.
Apart from giving people money when government wants to build a road somewhere.
Yes. Aside from them saying they have given money to people when the government wants to build the road or railway somewhere, it's gone.
What else do they do? Because their mandate is actually this thing.
That is their mandate. And
This
is it
issue
not a
of
permanent commission?
resolving- It is.
It is.
Precisely, which means people who work there are paid.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just
No,
saying,
I
to
get
be
why
sure.
you're asking. Of course. For sure. For sure.
wanalipwa mshahara kila mwezi.
Yep.
Pay the salary every month.
Yep.
Yes. So why do we keep having these discussions when they are the ones who ought to be showing us the way forward and providing a path that can be followed that will lead to an amicable resolution?
What we should be hearing from the NLC is actually a lot of these conversations of what they're doing, how they're reaching out to communities, how they're resolving land disputes, how they're helping even the local land boards to have land conversations. When you have such big issues of large tracts of land and communities affected, how do you resolve these issues? Now, the National Land Commission is chaired by some senior lawyer. It has land economists in it. It has people who understand issues of land and the history of land disputes in this country. I feel like they're not doing what they ought to be doing.
You don't need to feel. It's just, let's talk about the reality. What is this thing that you know that the Land Commission has actually resolved? We have land issues in this country every single day.
Yep.
There's some land issue somewhere in the corner of this country. We know they exist. Do you hear? The time when the Land Commissions come to the fore is when there's a scandal involving them.
Involving them.
Somebody in the National Land Commission was found with some millions of shillings in her home.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's when you hear.
Precisely. Then they come to the fore. And yet, we ought to be hearing more and more of what it is they're doing with the mandate that they've been given.
Yeah.
Because these salaries they earned, taxpayers' money, for heaven's sake.
Ndu. Tell us.
I'm just tired, man.
You're tired.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about this woman. There's a woman who's seeking a share of her former husband's property, and she has told the court that she was secretly divorced after being kicked out of their matrimonial home. She was Can you be secretly divorced?
Secretly.
Yes.
Somebody has to sign and accept. They can't divorce you and
So
you don't
this
know.
is what Beth Jabi was telling Justice Joel Goge in Nakuru, that Paul Mungara did not want to share property that they acquired during their 12-year marriage. She is seeking a share of their matrimonial home in Kiambogo and a parcel of land registered which has some rental flats. She told the judge that she was married to Mr. Mungara in 1990 and dropped out of college to take care of the family. I met him when he was working for his father. We started our bicycle business at STEM Plaza with 28,000 shillings only and some credit. She further said in 1996, the couple gave Mr. Mungara's father 130,000 shillings in exchange for a plot where they constructed a house. Jambi says in 2002, Mr. Mungara kicked her out of their matrimonial home alongside her 3 children. Then, I left for Nairobi to look for work and fend for my children, she said, adding that the man served her with divorce documents when she went to look for child upkeep in 2005. In 2010, Jambi became pregnant. She delivered twins in 2011. When Mr. Mungara asked her to return home, she was met with an eviction order. It was during the eviction that she learned that the marriage was officially nullified on August 29, 2007, and that the man had even married a second wife. Now she's telling the court that she wants Mungara to surrender the matrimonial home and a residential plot for her to raise the children that they sired together. She says she's not interested in reconciling with the man, and neither is she contesting the divorce. Ni sawa, uli divorce. Ni sawa. Now, why didn't you just give me a house to raise your children?
Yeah. Give me a place.
Yeah. Remember, Justice Professor Joel Goge is the chairman of the that committee in the judiciary that looks at alternative dispute resolution. Justice Professor Joel Goge has advised the couple to seek mediation and resolve this issue. Guys, can you sit with Wazes? Can you sit somewhere? Resolve this issue. Come back to me on July 26th and tell me how far you've gone. You are not contesting that you've been divorced. No, it's okay.
It's okay. I don't need him. But now
Sawa.
I have these children.
I need.
I need shelter and,
Yeah.
upkeep for them.
Yeah.
No emotions here.
It's
okay. No
sawa.
problem.
Hiya.
See, now you guys know there's a thing that has been bothering me.
There are several things that have been bothering you, but there's one that's big.
Which of these specific things is bothering you now?
Okay, see these domestic workers who run to the Gulf.
Yes.
The stories of, young Kenyans coming back in boxes when they left upright is really a thing. And so there's a special report having been done by the Standard today about why domestic workers run to the Gulf despite reports of abuse, because you would think that the many reports that you see of people being molested, people being sexually abused, people being, emotionally abused when they go out there without proper documentation or sometimes even without payment, you would think that we would act as a deterrent and other people would not apply. But it's not the case. That more and more people continue to apply, hoping to go. Interesting, I was in an Uber the other day and the driver got a phone call and he said, you've gotten it. So he was really happy. I was like, okay, what on earth is going on here? The day we were stuck here waiting to get out of the thing. And he said he's just gotten his visa for Qatar. And he's leaving on Saturday. Now tomorrow.
The Uber guy.
Yeah. So I asked him, I said, what is he? He said, no. If I can even make some 45,000 shillings a month, 50,000 shillings a month, I'm okay.
45, 50 G's. Good.
Very good. So I will go. And there are many of us who are going. And he didn't even think twice. Visa on a Tuesday, out on Saturday. He's done, he's gone. And there are many, many more people who are doing this. 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds are going to the Gulf to get better work. Now, some of the things that they talk about, for one lady, for example, who came back, she said she was looking for greener pastures. She landed in Qatar to get a household job, but her unpleasant experience of sexual harassment by the employer, working for long hours and mistreatment, resonates with tales of distraught Kenyans trapped in the Gulf. They can use any word to insult you. They would call me a monkey because of the color of my skin. But I could do nothing about it. She narrated how the employer tricked her by being subjected to sexual harassment whenever his wife was away. Most of these homes are under CCTV surveillance, and the man of the house would trick me to get him something from the car or their bedroom and would follow me and harass me sexually. Sadly, I could not report such incidents to the wife because she would turn against me. She narrated her ordeal during a meeting of the Labour Organization in Nairobi. Gishuru from Nakuru said her resilience to work in the Middle East was majorly motivated by the 27,000 shillings monthly pay that helped her pay her children's school fees and those of her sick sister and her parents' rent. Migrant workers in the domestic management are treated like slaves. I was eating leftover food and working more than 12 hours every day. The woman would carelessly leave a soiled underwear in the house for me to collect and clean. She managed to run away one night and was deported back to Kenya. Many Kenyans have trodden the unbeaten path to the Middle East, inspired by tales of abundance, only to be returned home in caskets. Others end up in foreign jails for allegedly violating labour laws. This is evidenced by the increasing media reports of abuse and killings of migrant domestic workers in the Gulf. However, migrant recruitment firms continue to be swarmed with applications of desperate women seeking to travel to the countries for greener pastures. The minimal requirements are a good paycheck, and this is all people want to know. These agents are taking these folks, and what they are telling you is that so long as the money is comparatively more than what I'm able to scram for here, all those other things people are telling me.
If I can make money, I'm good. I'm happy.
All those things don't matter.
It's, we talk about this all the time, and look at how much people are going for. I mean, it's 45,000. Yes, that's a lot more than very many people are earning in this country. So it's good, well-paying jobs. There are those who are going even for much less, like this Miss Gishure from Nakuru, Miriam Gishure, who says she was getting about 27,000 shillings as a domestic worker in Qatar. And she was saying, as long as I'm getting that 27 G's, I'll be able to pay school fees for my kids. You're going there to earn a living so that you can support your family back home.
Yes.
When you talk about this money then coming back into the country, the central bank will release the figures and show, Kenyans in the diaspora remitting money into the country and earning as foreign exchange, big time. But look at what they have to go through. And what is our government doing to take care of our diaspora?
That's it.
I think that man now must come, the PS for Foreign Affairs, because he has said this in Parliament. He has said this is a tinder keg. We are actually at the brink of a big disaster when it comes to Kenyan workers in the Middle East, and yet nothing seems to be getting done to address this.
It's actually unfortunate. The apathetic way in which government officials, whose mandate is actually to ensure not just the safety but the well-being of the citizenry, they acknowledge it, they say it, but then what else is done beyond acknowledging it? Because more people are still going. It's not as though they stopped. Remember, there was this talk about streamlining these matters, especially when it came to the employment of people who were trained in nursing, went to the UK.
Yeah.
Talks about streamlining it, ensuring it follows. Is it really that difficult to follow the lines that the Philippines have, where you document every citizen of this country and you know exactly where they are and you know exactly what they're doing?
No, it isn't. It is not. It isn't. But, just that it's the due diligence is not being done. And I'm asking the question, how many more people need to die? How many more people need to come home with these tales of war, of the things that actually happen to them when they're there? How many more do we need to? Is there a certain number? Then when you cross that numeric threshold, then we say, okay, fine. Okay, it's at this point that we need to maybe take this thing a bit seriously.
The stories of the Middle East, they were not always tales of war.
No, they weren't.
Because I remember in the 90s, when people talked about Saudi, they went for a good thing.
Yeah.
They went for really good. I remember once a student of mine asking me, they wanted to leave school in Form 3. And I said, no, please. I was trying to get them to finish Form 4. I said, but sir, you say you went to university. I said, I didn't say I actually went to university. He says, but my brother who finished at 8 has been in Saudi. He's worked there now for 5 years. He's bought 2 cars. He's built my parents a house.
And you who went to university,
and
how many do you have?
Yes, it was a challenge. I told him, actually, the point is valid.
Fair
Go to Saudi, but please finish your Form 4 first. Then go. You'll be in a better position. 1 year down the line, he came back to tell me I was right, because he did finish his Form 4. He told me, you know what happened? I'm my brother's supervisor. He actually came to tell me, you're right. Because my worry was this guy was intelligent, he was sharp. I was thinking, Form 3, you're going to go into the world with your Standard 8 certificate. How is that going to help you? That changed. That Middle East of the 90s doesn't exist. Yet people think of the Middle East along those terms. This is a completely different Middle East. It's a completely different dispensation. And all those wonderful stories of making money to come back, you may make money, but the circumstance under which you'll make them, sometimes you really have to wonder. But you see what it tells us, Eric, is that we have serious problems here.
We do have serious problems here. So those that are campaigning to support the hustler, these are hustlers.
Now, these are the genuine hustlers.
Yes.
And would they really believe in this country to go to the Middle East if things were okay or if they felt opportunities were available here?
Thank you. That is it. That you tell yourself, imagine somebody is telling you this road that you're about to go down, this is what I faced when I was on the same road. But the situation where you are is so terrible that you say, it's okay, let me tread that road.
If I can put up with this, I'm sure I can put up with that.
No problem.
If the hustler campaigners would actually come up with a program and say, this is what we're going to do to ensure that our Kenyans who are seeking opportunities, even abroad, are actually properly taken care of. Because I support, just let people go. We have a very, very good labor in this country. Let's export it.
Absolutely.
But make sure that everybody who's living in this country, Kenya's government knows where you are and that you're being well taken care of by whoever is employing you. Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. We'll be talking about climbing Mount Everest soon, 8-7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Newswire Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta's promised to hand over power to whoever wins the election. At the 19th National Prayer Breakfast, peace statements during the election as well as forgiveness prevailed as various leaders used the occasion to promote peace during the election season while also asking their fellows to put an end to verbal attacks against political parties and politicians. Now, Azimio la Umoja, one Kenya presidential running mate Martha Karua, says the coalition party has the ultimate solution for revamping the country's ailing economy. Karua says that through the one county, one product plan encompassed in the Azimio agenda, the Raila Odinga-led camp will eradicate poverty and boost the livelihoods of ordinary Kenyans if it clinches the presidency. Speaking at a rally in Madaraka County where she drummed up support for Odinga ahead of the August polls, Karua said the political outfit holds the master plan for addressing poverty and creating capital for the country. These as Azimio la Umoja presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga says if elected as president, he will fast-track the construction of the Lake Victoria Ring Road as part of his elaborate infrastructural framework to spur regional cross-border trade. Odinga, who was speaking on the second day of his Western vote hunt, also said he will give Busia and Malaba towns a modern stature. The Azimio Brigade pitched camp in Busia County, holding rallies and stopovers across the county, including the commissioning of Busia County Azimio offices. And the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance has promised to revive collapsed industries based in Western Kenya. The leadership has also hinted that it will repossess some factories that were sold to private investors at a throwaway price. Speaking during the third day of the campaigns in the region, the alliance's leaders, led by ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi and his Ford Kenya counterpart Moses Wetangula, noted that the region's economy has been crippled by the collapse of some of the main factories like the Mumias Sugar Company. Now, Kenya and the United Kingdom have committed to finalizing the implementation of an agreement on the collaboration of the health workforce as they seek to enhance bilateral knowledge exchange and capacity improvement. A meeting held in London between Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and Lord Carmel, the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State of Technology, Information and Life Sciences at the Department of Health and Social Care, resolved to prioritize the full operationalization of the pact, including on trade and investment in the health sector. According to Kagwe, Kenya and the UK will benefit from each other's comparative strengths and experiences through the mutual agreement. And Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibisho led the National Celebrations Committee in the inspection of the ongoing preparations for the Madaraka Day celebrations to be held at the Uhuru Gardens. Speaking after the inspection, Kibisho said preparations are complete. 30,000 Kenyans are expected to attend the Madaraka celebrations on the grounds Wednesday next week. The PS further noted that the government decided to move the event from the county rotational hosting back to Nairobi because it will be the last event for the current administration before it exits office. The Director of Criminal Investigations, George Kinoti, has issued a warrant of arrest for two fugitive drug barons wanted in the United States for drugs and wildlife trafficking. The two fugitives, Badru Abdelaziz Saleh and Abdi Hussein Ahmed, are wanted for conspiracy to smuggle at least 190 kgs of rhinoceros horns, at least 10 tons of elephant ivory valued at more than $7 million, and distribution of approximately 10 kgs of heroin. At the same time, the United States has announced rewards of up to $1 million each for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of two fugitives for the violation of U.S. narcotics and wildlife trafficking laws. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority Board traversed Marsabit County to assess security preparedness and accountability procedures as the country approaches the general elections. The team, which was led by Chairperson Anwar Kori, also paid the Marsabit multi-agency security team led by the County Commissioner a courtesy call at Marsabit County headquarters. The meeting explored on strategies to sustain police-public partnership in areas that will positively impact the security and safety of residents of the entire Marsabit County. And the senior United Nations observer expressed serious concern about the erasure of women from public life across Afghanistan since the Islamist Taliban seized power in August. The insurgent ruling group's male-only government has suspended Afghan girls' secondary education, prevented most female employees from returning to government jobs, barred women from traveling alone, ordered them to cover up fully in public, including their faces, and strongly advised them to stay at home. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, a few minutes after 7 o'clock and traffic is already picking up. Much different from what it was just 30 minutes ago. A lot of traffic then going on into Uhuru Highway coming off the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. And from that overpass, we're seeing some traffic going towards the roundabout at Haile Selassie. Out into the CBD and then through to Westlands. That's built up quite some. Jogo Road also is going to spill over to Lasaka Road for some time and then going towards Landis Road and then out towards the Kamkunji roundabout. That we see action already. And on the Thika Superhighway, like magic, there's a lot of traffic here today. It's bumper to bumper and it's really heavy. Coming all the way from the Outer Ring Junction, it's going to go through to the Pangani underpass, and it's also building up on Kiambu Road today, joining that craziness at Muthaiga Square. Okay, coming off Limuru Road as well, that continues. We saw some action happening in Muthaiga, and that's building up out in this direction today. On Waiaki Way, heading out towards Westlands, looks pretty good. James Gishuru is free and clear. The Red Hill Link Road also, there's an opportunity for you to explore the city. Not that you have to because of traffic. Let's talk in half an hour and see what it looks like, guys. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It's 8 minutes after
This
7.
is
Good
the
morning and how are you doing? Welcome to Friday. If you're just getting up or if you're just joining us, it's the 27th day of March 2022. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the second hour. We're here with a guest, and before we introduce the guest, let's hear the day's proverb from Tanzania.
Even flies have ears.
Even flies have ears. It's not just walls. Hey.
I don't think
Every
John's-
creature has the capacity to listen.
Even flies have ears. They fly on the wall.
Well, they say even walls have ears.
Now you can imagine now the fly on the wall.
That
Fly on the wall. Even flies do have ears.
yes.
It's like we said earlier, you can just imagine what kind of noise they have to filter. Just their wings. The flapping of the wing, and then they'll be able to hear everything else that's happening around them.
You know, that's a fly's situation as documented by a human being. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the fly could tell us exactly how it copes with this?
If the fly could tell us whether its ears work
in the first place.
in the first place. You know, a couple of weeks back, there was news that broke from international news that broke in the country, right? That there was a team of an all-black team that was the first to summit Mount Everest, the highest point in the world. And in that team, among the many blacks, was one black from Kenya. And this man was not actually those young barobaro chaps. He is a former teacher and is 62 years old. And people were like, wow. And it was just an amazing story of seeing the photos, seeing the stories, and those things that make you feel proud. The man himself is here with us in the studio. He's James Kagambi, popularly known as KG. Good morning and welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, KG.
Morning to you.
Asante sana for joining us. First of all, congratulations for, hitting this milestone. First Kenyan to climb Mount Everest and hit the peak. First among the All Blacks in a team to do this. Very many things. Reading your stories, we realize that yes, you worked as a teacher, but at the same time, you started climbing mountains at the tender age of 23. Just give us your story. So, this is KG. He's in his 20s. He says, ain't no mountain high enough.
Other people are playing football.
Yes.
You've decided you want to climb mountains.
Yes.
Why?
I was a scout, and I like going out in the field. And whenever I went to visit a hill or something, I got some interest. I wanted to know what is past there. And I remember my first expedition. I was in St. Joseph's High School in Kitale, and I convinced the teacher to allow us to go to Mount Elgon. I had no clue what it is about, but I was convincing enough that I got 60 young of us, and I took them to Mount Elgon. We went halfway and came back. We spent a night. We had a lot of fun. And from then on, I knew I want to start exploring mountains. I think that time I was 18. Yes.
Okay, I'm sure before this particular point, when you're telling the teacher, let's go to Mount Elgon, it's because you're in Kitale, Mount Elgon is not far. Had you climbed some hills here and there?
Yes, in Karatina growing up, in Laikipia growing up, just small hills. But I have to say, in 1973, when they did the fireworks on Mount Kenya to celebrate 10 years, my dad got me out of bed and showed me, and I saw the fireworks. And I remember saying, I want to do that. And I am the one who did it at the 50th anniversary.
Oh.
So, yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
My friend, it makes the heart glad and makes the week move faster.
Yes. Finally, this Friday is coming.
It's coming. Yes, because this is delightful news. Yes, very heartwarming.
At that age, when you're in fourth form, and this is a young man who grew up in Karatina, in close to Mount Kenya, and now you are in Kitale. You have climbed that mountain and come
Mount
back.
Elgon.
Mount Elgon, and you've come back to school. So, what happened next?
I realized that whenever I went out to extracurricular activities, everybody trusted me, thought that I knew what I was doing. But I had a lot of confidence. I could convince people to do just anything, we would do it. I was always mischievous. I was always, even in Karatina growing up, during the season when it was very cold, I would be the one leading all the boys to make the fun things, the slides, and I would do it in every style. So this is something that was in me, just doing things that other people don't do.
How did you feel? Let's say the first time you convinced your teacher, let us go climb Mount Elgon, and then you were able to convince all these other students to do it as well. When you completed that, or when you completed, before you even get to this huge thing that you did just a couple of weeks ago, how did you feel every time you did something like this and then you were able to accomplish it?
I felt good, but one thing I never forgot to do is as soon as I did something like that, I would look back and see what we went through and what could have gone wrong. And then the next time I do it, I make sure that I cover all those loopholes. Yeah.
And did you find that every time you did this first thing, the next thing that you wanted to do was more difficult? Did you want to do the more difficult thing? Did you want to conquer something greater after the first one that you did?
Yeah, there's something in you, like I'm a bit different with most other mountaineers who want to jump from one mountain to the other just because of the difficult. I find difficulties even within the same mountain. When I started rock climbing, I was practicing on almost one area in Hell's Gate, and I was alone, and so I would do the same route but differently, and then say, okay, now I'm doing the same route, but I want to feel a difficult on this end. I want to try this. So I can do the same thing over and over, but every time I do it, it's different. So I've gone to Mount Kenya over 200 times, and every time I go, I still have fun. So yes, I would like to do different mountains, but I'm not that type of a mountaineer who just wants to do new mountains all the time.
You said 200 times.
Oh, over 200, yes.
Yeah.
You're not doing so badly, City.
Kilimanjaro 100.
Over 100.
See?
Yeah.
City has done twice.
Thrice.
Yeah, that's good.
Mount Kenya.
Yeah.
But how is it that when you get older, it seems to get easier? That's my experience. It's not as difficult as the first time you try to climb.
I think older people tend to be mentally prepared, They are determined. They know to listen to whoever is taking them, or younger people. I have that too. Younger people, they really listen. You tell them. You can even sit down, teach them, but it takes long for them to understand. And when you have issues on the mountains, it's not the older people. It's the younger people who are just running. And I try to compose them and tell them, okay, look, you are hiking behind me. Or, okay, you can run, but you fight me on top. Which happens a lot of times.
They start running and then they find you there.
Yes.
First time going up Mount Kenya, I'm assuming that after Mount Elgon, the next highest peak that you did was Mount Kenya.
Yes, it was.
Okay, first of all, this time when you went the first time at Mount Elgon, you just went halfway.
Yes.
Did you go back?
No, I didn't, and I haven't gone back. I have always planned to go back, but some things keep coming up. Then I will have an opportunity to go to another mountain now, a higher mountain, and so I haven't.
So Mount Kenya,
Yeah.
at the age of 23, what inspired that?
I was working at this time as a teacher next to Mount Kenya, and the first time I actually went or tried is, again, I convinced the teachers I was teaching with over a weekend to go through the forest, not even go the legal way. And I borrowed some makeshift tents. And we went up and spent 2 nights in the forest. We never made it.
Did you go through Narumoro or did you go through Meru? Where did you?
Nowhere, just from the school. I went straight up.
Forest
through
up.
the forest. Yeah.
I'm mountain is here.
Yes, I'm a fan of that. That's what I do actually a lot in most mountains. I just say I'm going through here, and I go. But this time we didn't go far, but they had fun, and I could understand because they were not used to it. That was the first time. We'd never even went far. Then I got a chance now to do the real thing, and I went up, and I wasn't prepared, wearing jeans, cotton T-shirts. But by the time I got to Makinda's, headache, very cold, swearing I'll never be there. I go back again. My friend said he cannot go past there, but I said, I'm going to the summit. When I touched snow towards the summit, something changed, and on my way down, I knew this is where I belong. And up to now, whenever I get on snow, my not life changes, but I change my character. It's not who I am down here. I just become somebody very fun.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you what this experience does for your mind. Because every time we hear about mountain climbing, somebody wants to climb the mountain. It's about the physical preparation that you have to go through. You must train for a certain number of weeks, eat certain kinds of foods, etc., etc. But what does it do for your mind every time you experience the climb?
I don't know. When I leave and go to the mountains, I say I'm a different person. I'm able to entertain myself. That's when I can dance. I can do anything. Like on Everest, I made a lot of small groups of. Some people thought that I was getting crazy, by the way. But for those people who know me in the mountains, that's how I am.
You come alive.
Yeah. It is something that comes out of there that if you tell. Let's say if you tell some people in my family that I'm that, they will say, no, that guy doesn't even talk.
He doesn't dance.
Yeah, he doesn't do this. But yeah, those people who have gone with me out, in the back country, they know that I do that. Every time I go up, it changes me. I have a goal of making sure that either I'm challenging myself in a certain way, but I do it so much that I actually don't have to restrict myself to exercises to get ready to a mountain, because that's my life. That's how I earn my living. So I'm always in the back.
You're always ready.
Yes.
As a teacher, and obviously through your teacher training, you know how to inculcate messages and character into people. When you now become a mentor for people who are seeking to climb a mountain,
yes,
what is the most important thing that you tell them? What is the biggest lesson that you want to impart to them before you start taking them up the mountain?
Safety is key, and listening to your leader as you learn, and also as you pick up some things, some lessons you learn. Don't move too fast thinking that, now I'm an expert, because you only need to get to that point where you're feeling comfortable, and that's when you get in dangerous situations.
Right.
Because you know something, but you don't know enough to know you don't know. And by the time you know you don't know, then that's when you start seeking for more information. So I tell people to be very careful with that. If it is serious mountaineering, I would like you to go hike as slowly as possible. Drinking water is very, very important because your body needs the water. And going slow allows you to inhale the amount of oxygen that your muscles need to move on. And if you do that, it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't know whether you have any disease, I can take you in any mountain. Yes.
Walk us through the climbing experience on a mountain that would take days, and how you start, and going through night one, and then going to the next night, and like that.
So when a question like that can be answered with, there are different mountains and you approach them differently. First of all, you identify which mountain am I going to? Am I going to Kilimanjaro? Am I going to Mount Kenya? Am I going to Rwenzori? Am I going to Denali? Am I going to Aconcagua? And what does it entail? How long does it take? How high it is? And then when you come with all those answers, then you plan. Okay, the mountains that I have gone over number of days, Denali I did in 36 days, 1989. Because we started from the scratch and we had to plan, and you don't have porters, nobody is carrying your stuff, so you take advantage of your body and your energy to carry everything. So you have to bring the food and gear for all those days. You're talking about gear, you're talking about shoes, just your shoe work is like 7. You have crampons, you have bunny boots, you have the real boots, you have the rock boots, you have the snowshoes, all those things. So
and
those shoes are so
all
heavy.
of them in this expedition.
Yes, you use them as you go in different places. When you come to ice, when you come to rocks, when you come to, as you go high. And just those alone are very heavy. So then look at food, look at the tent and all that. So what you do is you start ferrying. We call it ferrying. So you start day one, you carry a load, maybe up to 2 stages, and then come back down, sleep. The following day, take another load there, come back and sleep. And the third day, or depending on how much load you have, then you move the whole camp and you can say, now we are in camp 2. And then to camp 3, you do the same. To camp 4, you do the same, like that. But as you go, you're using food, so you have less times of ferrying. But it may sound redundant, it may sound like, oh, this is too much work. Forgetting that if you are not alone, you are with people. So every day you are going, you are learning about one another. 2, it's a high mountain, and what you need is your body to acclimatize, to be used to be there. And if you just go, if you start and go to camp 1, camp 3, camp 4, you ascend so quickly that your body cannot deal with it. So most likely you are dying or just collapse. You can't make it. So it is a way of carrying your stuff, but also for your body to acclimatize. Yeah.
Wow. Would you then say that those who go through the experience and have porters carrying things for them have an easier time, or would you say that they learn less, or they get a lesser experience?
They still have full experience depending on who they are and how they come. I would wish that they would go without, but asking that, it's limiting, because there are people who cannot definitely carry their own things. So if you say that you have to take a porter, then you are limiting other people who cannot do that. You're telling them you cannot go to the mountain. So we still encourage them. But there are ways of incorporating them into this porterage, so the porter can carry a lot of things, but the person can still carry a little bit. You learn more when you do things for yourselves, but you still learn something, even if somebody is carrying things for you and they are cooking for you. And for grown-ups, a lot of them, you know how to cook. Mostly when I'm teaching mountaineering, I'm teaching younger people who don't even know how to cook. You're showing them how to light a stove, how to set up a tent, and you spend a whole month with them. And at the end, you want them to know how to do those things. That person can come and take you to a mountain and bring you back. So you're teaching them so much things. But for grown-ups, they know how to do those things. It's their time to enjoy the mountain and just the good food that the cooks will cook for them.
I've always been intrigued by the story of porters. I mean, these people, they are going up and down a mountain constantly, carrying heavy luggage.
Yes.
What is it about them? I mean, you've interacted with very many of them. What's their story?
I've been a porter.
You've been a porter yourself. What's the story? What inspires one to decide, okay, I'm going to be doing this? Is it just looking for a job and opportunities? Or is it in addition to just loving?
I would say porterage is mainly a job opportunity, because any porter who is good would desire to be a guide or to be a cook, because then you get paid more. In those days when I started, a lot of people who were porters were people who could not communicate as easily to the clients. And then there are others who can still communicate, but they are doing their job as a porter so well that they become head porters, and we depend on them. We say, okay, I have this load that needs to be taken by 20 people. You're in charge. I want this load in a certain place. Porters work very hard. But fortunately for them, especially like for most mountains, they will carry the loads to the base camp. And then when they get there, they just sit around, they can help the cook. But the person who actually does a lot of work is the guide, because the guide cannot move at his own or her own speed. A porter can do that. They can run up the mountain.
Porter will leave you
and
take your luggage.
A guide cannot. You have to hike with your client. And then when you get to camp, the base camp, the job of a porter is almost done. But the guide still has another. Wake up early in the morning and go summit and come back down. So that is the main difference. You look at the guide is not carrying, but is shouldering a lot of work. The guide is also in charge of the porters. The guide is in charge of the clients. The guide is in charge of the whole expedition. And it's their job to monitor everybody and make sure that they are doing well. If one porter is not doing good, it's you to decide, I'm going to take them down or I'll get another one. Make those decisions. You are a leader. Yeah.
Did you ever start a climb but not finish? Did you ever start a climb and say, well, this one we cannot do. Let's go back and regroup and start again?
Apart from Mount Elgon.
Yes, I have. And I'm always ready for that. I'm a mountaineer, and I know that, one, I need to respect the environment. I need to respect the mountains. And whatever the mountain tells me to do is what I'll do. I'm talking about the terrain. Maybe it's a mountain I've never been to. I'm talking about the weather. You can start with very good weather, and all of a sudden, boom, it stops, and you don't know where you're going. Maybe you may have your GPSs, you may have your maps, but the weather that comes in does not allow you time to come all the way back down. And you have to make that decision that, okay, we are not summiting. When we go to the summit, there are times we will say, depending on the mountain, if we are not on top by this time, we have to be back. And there's a reason why people leave very early to go to the summit. If you want to ask that question, I can answer later. I would say that the most hurting mountain that I went up and I did not summit, I had summited it before, Denali, which is 20,320 feet. The highest in North America. It's in Alaska. It's the coldest mountain, actually. When I went to Everest, I felt like, well, it's no cold. That mountain is cold. So in 2013, which was, I would say, was my the year I did a lot in mountaineering and got recognized so much. My middle recognition was being invited from Kenya to go to America and lead the first African-American black expedition to Denali, which I had climbed in 1989 as the first black African. And that was a big honor. And I went up there. It was, we were making a film on it, all these things. I had to, make the team go up. We were 4 leaders, and the team members were 9 of them. And actually, some of them were actually on Everest. And we did everything possible, went up to 14,000, stayed there because the weather was bad for about a week, and then we had an opening. We went up to 17,000, slept 2 days, and then the 3rd day we started for the summit. And I was leading on this last day. We were 100 feet from the summit. And all of a sudden, everything was that blue. Clean. Like you could see the sun. I was making fun saying I could see Everest. And all of a sudden, within like 2 minutes, the weather turned around It was misty. There was this thunder starting to come down. And thunder is very dangerous up a mountain. And you can tell. You're holding an ice axe, you can see it. You can hear the sound of electricity.
What?
You can feel your hair. And that can take a lot of
Because you're
people.
closer to the thunder.
Yes. So I just said, turn around, let's go, let's run. And you're tied down, so you cannot run faster than the person.
How do you even
who's
run
with-
down a mountain?
You can, because you're on snow, you can. I mean,
Wow.
you're used to it.
But you're tied to each other.
Yes. So we were able to get out 100 feet to the top. And tell you what, most of the other groups did not turn around. They just continued comfortably. They went to the top. They were safe. They did not get hit by the thunder. But what I know is that when that comes, you don't wait.
You
'Cause
make a
if it
decision
does,
right there.
You make a decision, because if one of you gets hit, because you're already tied between me and the next
You're
person.
tied to each
could-
other, yes.
And the other person could be like 20 feet. And usually when thunder strikes, if I get electrocuted or
Yes.
whatever, anybody within 50 feet can also get it.
What?
So you're talking about your whole rope
The
tape.
entire
So I made that decision, and I did not feel about it and bad about it. And when we went down, I still felt that we had accomplished the reason why we had gone up.
What
there.
did your team feel?
They felt
heard
good.
that
There's some people who
the
are
rest had actually made it.
yes,
The rest had to continue and finish.
yep,
And you had ordered your team to come back down.
yes.
Are there some who looked at you and said,
They did not look at me because they would have made the same
Decision.
the same decision. Only that it's not the ones who made it. So obviously you can say, "Oh yeah, he made it," but everybody was very supportive, and we agreed that was the best thing to do, because you don't want to ask yourself if it touched the ground, what would have happened. I would not have. I would rather be home rather than think about that. The mountain is still there. We can go back.
"Can go back
Right.
another
Some
day"?
people are not very impressed because they really wanted to summit. And this climb was kind of sponsored, and it cost a lot of money. And some people are like, no, coming back here, I don't know when I can. But I had to accept that. But the bottom line is we accomplished our goal. Goal number one, coming back alive. That's the biggest success of an expedition. And I was happy about it. Goal number two, our main goal was to actually start to sensitize the black community in America to start going out in the outdoors. And already we had gotten so much publicity, and it was out there. And even after the climb, they all traveled around USA talking to groups of black people, and also other different genders, different colors, not only black.
So you tick the boxes in terms of the objectives.
Yes.
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation this morning is hosting James Kagambi, KG. He is the first Kenyan to summit Mount Everest, and he was also in the team of the first all-black expedition to summit Mount Everest. He has climbed very many mountains in his 62 years on this earth. He has done Mount Kenya more than 200 times. He has done Kilimanjaro. He's done this one that he's just telling us about, Denali in Alaska. He's done many others. You'll tell us more about them and what else you've done. Kenya Revenue Authority is also telling you they've been doing a lot. Since 2015, they launched the Alternative Dispute Resolution Mechanism, and they say, come, let's talk.
The real Proverbs 1, Isaiah 1:18 would have said, come, let us reason together. Though your sins are, we can make it like this. So KRA is basically saying, come and let's have a chat. Let's see what the problem is by way of an arbiter, a mediator between yourselves and KRA, and says, look, guys, if this is a problem, bring all your stuff. Let's see how this can be resolved, as opposed to this cops and robbers game that we keep playing, people running away from us. It can actually make it a little bit easier for you to get things aligned.
When we make our claims as KRA, we're telling you what we know. We're asking you to come and tell us
What do you know?
What do you know?
what you know.
What we may not know.
Dispute goes in, dispute goes to the dispute tribunal, and you feel you want to go to court. Before you make a decision of taking that dispute to court, seek alternative dispute resolution. It works faster, it's cheaper, it's win-win for everybody.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Silvanus Martin, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Silvanus Martin, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
17 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 15. At 15 degrees, it's sunny in Nakuru. Highs of 25. 25 will also be the high in Nyeri, where it's raining at 17 and mostly cloudy conditions at 14. In Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 13. The rain is back in Mombasa at 25, highs of 31. And we'll see highs of 31 as well in a rainy Malindi. Mostly cloudy conditions, a bit of rain here and there in Kisumu, highs of 26 and lows of 18, while Kagambi is cloudy at 18. It'll go to highs of 24. And lows of 15. Kampala is raining this morning at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 17, and it's mostly sunny at 24 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 32 and lows of 23. Joburg at 10, clear conditions, highs of 20 and lows of 8, and it's clear this morning for now. After the rain in Lagos at 24, we see highs of 31. 30 will be the high in a mostly clear Kinshasa at this point at 23. 22 will be the low. Traffic is building up in many parts of the city this morning. We're looking at a thicker superhighway, and that is thick and heavy all the way from the Outer Ring Junction. And we're looking at bumper-to-bumper traffic through and through to the Pangani Underpass. It's not so terrible on Kiambu Road today, but we're likely to see that pick up moving from now through the morning. Limuru Road has already started that in- and outbound traffic situation. Coming out of Westlands, also a little bit here and there. Ring Road Westlands already packing up. Waiaki Way, not too bad. James Gishiro then connecting and coming out onto Waiaki Way also. State House Road, that whole area, Arboretum out from Kileleshwa, then through to Chiromo, has built up quite some as well. The Eastern Bypass not looking too bad this morning. And Outer Ring taking off some traffic from North Airport Road, but it's manageable. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter in a bit. Text on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
(21 to 8), the conversation continues. This is the Situation Room on SpiceFM, SpiceFM KE on Facebook and YouTube. And our guest this morning is James Kagambi, KG, 62-year-old young man who recently climbed Mount Everest. Just going up there and coming down, one of the very many other mountains that he has climbed. And he's telling us about the experience of going around the world and just conquering summits. You've talked about how you have to be mentally prepared and psyched for this. In terms of physically, how much preparation is required to go up there physically? And then people talk about financial. How expensive is it to go up a mountain?
Yep. Physically, again, you have to look at, you come up with a goal. I want to go to this mountain. Let's say you're in East Africa. I want to go to Mount Kenya, Rwenzori, or Kilimanjaro. So how physically fit should I be? For Mount Kenya, I would say that you could use, and Kilimanjaro, you may just be hiking. That's fine. It will take you there as far as you go slowly. For Rwenzori, it's almost the same, but you want to do it more rigorously because it takes a long time to calm down. And if you want to do Rwenzoris in style, you can do the technical bit of it. And so you need to know how to use ropes. If you want to get to the top of Mount Kenya, you need to know how to use ropes. But for beginners, I would say that just hiking in the morning for a kilometer or two, for a few weeks before you go up a mountain, that's fine. But you don't want to be too vigorous. If you want to be vigorous, then if you're going in 6 months to a big mountain, then start
now.
Start now. But you cannot start now and go for 2 weeks and then go to a very taxing mountain. Actually, it will not be good for your body. Cost-wise, people should not feel limited because you can just start with some free hills you go up to. You can go to Kilimanjaro, Bogo, which you only pay a little bit. Longonot is also accessible. We have Lukenya down here, is accessible if you're from Nairobi. But if you're thinking about going big, going to Mount Kenya, going to Kilimanjaro, Rwenzoris, for now, I would say Mount Kenya is the cheapest, followed by Rwenzoris. But Rwenzoris takes longer, and then Kilimanjaro, you can also do it, but it's more expensive. So it's not cheap. For gear, that's where, again, it becomes very costly. But these days, there's a lot of gear available for rent. So you don't have to go out and buy 300,000 worth of gear to go up a mountain and you never use it again. You can just come like to my office and rent that and then go up and down. And the more people you are in a group, the cheaper it is. You can start by 1 day climb, then go to a 2 day and 3, and then build up that way. And then if you find that you like mountaineering, then you can buy your own gear and start doing something bigger.
What determines how many days you take going up a summit?
What determines is which summit you're going to. So if you're going to Mount Kenya and you're going to Point Lanana, some people go for 2 days, there are 3 days, 4 days. I would determine that by when somebody comes to me and say, hey, I want to go to Lanana, I'll ask a lot of questions. Your physical fitness, where you live, what you eat, do you have any ailments, like diseases that you have? Not that I'll tell you can't go, but it will help me decide which way. A lot of people who have those issues will take them for 4 days, and I know which route is easier for them. Somebody will say, I want to go to Mount Kenya, but I want to have fun. Then I'll say 4 days, and I'll take you fishing also as we go up. Right. Bring in other things, not just the mountain.
How long would you climb Mount Kenya in?
Me?
Yes.
I can go up and down in a day.
In a day?
Yeah.
And so maybe a bit of a funner question. You talked about being in a rope team. So I'm trying to imagine climbing up a mountain and somebody needs to stop. Bathroom break. So when somebody needs to stop, everybody then needs to stop. Yes. Do you wait, or then you wait for somebody to get over your thing and then you continue?
Is there a timetable?
Yeah, it's like, hey guy, bathroom break 30 seconds. Kind of
there
thing.
are 2 types of ropes. If you're doing technical climbing, like on Mount Kenya, and you're climbing up to Batian, one person goes up at the head of the rope, and then the other one follows, and then you stop there. So you can relieve yourself when you're there, because you can be clipped in, or the other person has left, you can relieve yourself after they leave. But when you are glacier traveling, like let's say on Rwenzori, if you have to do glacier or Denali or Aconcagua, you are tied in and you stay tied in until you summit and come back down.
Explain tied in.
So I have a rope, and I'm the leader. Then in about 30 feet, you're there. Not another 30 feet you're there, and you're last. And I'm the one going, and you have to follow those steps. And the reason why you're tied in is because of the huge crevices that you can fall in. So if you fall and you're behind me, I'm ready. So I go at what we call it an arrest. You arrest, and then you stay suspended in the hole. And then she is the one who figures a way of getting to you. And all together, we get you out, because you go out ready for those rescue.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you say you remain tied in. So what does that mean? You're wearing a diaper? What happens?
No, you're wearing a harness. It's like a diaper. You're wearing a harness, and unfortunately, there are different types of harness. There are some that come specifically for women, so if they have to relieve themselves, they can just untie it in a way that half is still tied. For men, it's much easier. And so what I'm saying is, if you are going and you have to relieve yourself, we are facing that way.
Yeah.
So we stop, and you're facing that way, and you do your business.
And let's move.
But what do you attach this equipment to? Because there's you at the front. If someone falls, there's a likelihood of this person dragging everybody.
Yeah.
So, what other security do you have?
When you go out there, I would not go there with greenhorns. I would go with somebody I've trained, somebody who I know that will react in the right way. It's not an easy training. It will take you like 3 or 4 weeks if you're going to do an expedition like that, so that I know that when I fall, I'm safe with you. When you fall, you're safe with me, and we prove to one another like that. And it happens.
When you're a teacher. Essentially what you're saying is mountain climbing has many facets to it, but at some point it gets technical.
Yes.
How many schools are there in Kenya where people can be trained in mountain climbing? And what is it that these training schools hope to achieve?
Unfortunately, that is one place that we need to still address with the government. We used to have Outward Bound, which is still there, but it has moved away from what it was. Now I think it's foreign owned or something like that. So you have really no control on that. But if you have money, you can still pay to go there. But their way of training is different. There's Kesau, which is owned by the government, but usually it's exclusive for the rangers, for the army and all that. So we really don't have a real school that I can go train here in Kenya. I train people. Like I trained rangers on Rwenzori, I trained people in Tanzania. I worked for a school on contract called NORS, which used to be here for many years. Right now, I'm the most senior instructor all over the world for them. So I'll go where they are. They'll ask me to go. And so if we need to train people here in Kenya, I would incorporate them and bring them here, and they certify us. It's very expensive, but sometimes they sponsor people to do that. So when I train people myself, I'll bring up people slowly over years, and then when I feel they are ready, I'll take them to US and under their school, and they can come back with a certificate.
Let's now talk about this conquest up Mount Everest. In a team of, it's an all-black team, you wanted to make history, you made history. How did this story begin?
It began a long time when we went to Denali. Some of us thought about it, but we never talked about it.
In 2013?
Yes. Before 2013, personally, when I became the first black African to summit Denali in 1989, then 1994, I was the first one on a Aconcagua, which is about 23,000 feet.
That's the second highest peak in the world.
Aconcagua, no, that is the highest in the southern hemisphere. Wow. It's in Argentina, and it's the highest in Southern America. And in 1991, I represent Africa on a peace climb in Europe. And going through all those and climbing different mountains, climbing a lot in Patagonia, in Chile, I decided, why can't I be the first black African on Everest? And it was in my line. I really wanted to do it. I looked for sponsors. Actually, twice got in a group that was going, but then the sponsors could only sponsor people who are residents of America, so I got kicked out. And both times, all of them summited. So in 1996, South Africa came up with an expedition that was exclusive South African. They went up, but unfortunately that was the time that we lost a lot of people on Everest, and so they had to turn around. And in 2003, they sponsored a person from Lesotho, and he summited. So he was the first black person, 2003. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, my goal is gone. So I started questioning myself, why do I do mountaineering? And I realized that I love the teaching, and I love teaching people how to be safe on mountains, and that satisfied me so much. I loved taking kids and taking them out and showing them how to take care of themselves, how to be dependent, and seeing that growth, that to me was that perfect. So at that point I was like, I really don't need to go to Everest to do this. There's a lot more I'm doing out here. True, Everest is so expensive, like 10 million to go up there.
Wow.
So I just gave up. So in 2013, when I met all these people, one of them in particular, a friend of mine called Theo Henderson, who was the leader of this expedition, also thought about the first black team on Everest. And why the first black team on Everest? Everest has been climbed by over 4,000 people. But out of those, only 8 were black over all those years. And he wanted to do something to show that people, not only blacks, but people of color can also do those things. And so he started thinking about it. He never told me after that. And then 2 years ago, he calls me and says, KG, we are going to Everest. I say, when? Next year. Okay, I'm
Not
done.
why, when?
I'm not going. I've decided I'm not going. I say, why? I'm too old. My knees are just, the doctors have decided I should have knee replacement, and I haven't done it yet. And so I went on. What else? I cannot spend all that time without earning anything. And he said, no, we can talk about those things. So he talked about me. He talked about why he is asking me. He really needed me on the expedition because he knows I'm very supportive. I'm very motivating to groups, and I bring up good vibe in an expedition. And eventually I said, okay, I'll go. So I got in as the only Kenyan, and I was behind them because they were able, coming from US, they were able to go out and do expeditions by themselves, no one another. Luckily enough, I knew like 4 of them I'd gone up mountains with, so that did not bother me. In January, we went to Nepal for a hike for 20 days, and so we did some team building. I specialize in that, so I brought it up, 2 days of team building, and then, we are ready for the mountain. So that's how I
That
got
whole
in.
process, how long did it take? Planning, training, especially
2
training,
years.
and then climbing the mountain and coming down.
I would say it's 2 years, especially for the people in US. And for them, most of them are athletes, sponsored by North Face. So they are used to doing shorter trips, but me, I'm used to doing long trips, like expeditions. And for me, I did not need to do the extreme training they were doing to get ready. Just because my job is taking me out from June, I was in the field in
All the
US
time.
all the way to December. So on snow, doing these things. And then when I came back, I had to do in-training here on Mount Kenya, on Rwenzoris when I was around. And that was my main challenge, that we had sponsors from there to go, but I did not have sponsors for other things. I approached the government, I approached so many companies. I was let down, and I almost gave up. And then when we came back from Nepal, that's when I met Betika, and they said, look, what are your challenges? Said, I'm not earning from December all the way to June. So I need to pay tickets to Nepal. I need training money on Mount Kenya. I need to go to Rwenzoris. I need this. And they said, okay, we'll take care of that. And when you come back, we'll take care of you going out and preaching the gospel to other people to become mountaineers. So Betika came in at the right time.
Oh, lovely.
Kicked in and helped me a lot. And they are still supporting me.
So Betika has been with you now through that journey of preparation, going there, and also now,
Yes.
as you come back and you're talking about it's doable, it's workable, and encouraging anybody who's listening to you this morning and hearing, I'd like to climb a mountain, the conversation that you're giving us this morning, all this is courtesy of Betika.
Yes, it is courtesy of Betika, but it was also one of my requests I did that I'm doing this to preach this. People need to go out to the mountains, and not necessarily mountains. They can go for a walk. We need to do it for our own physical fitness. And I don't need to tell people what you gain from it. I just want you to try and then come back and tell me how you feel. Just encourage people to go to the outdoors. The other thing that I would like to do is I'm doing more presentations today. I'm doing a presentation on Museum of Kenya. And one of the things we have in Kenya is mountaineering is not considered as a sport. So whenever you go out to ask for money for support, you're told, this one is not there. And like when I represented Africa in Europe, I sold everything I had to pay for
to be able to go.
Yes. Equipment, tickets and all that.
And yet you're training your body and your mind in a way just any other sportsman, if not more, would do.
Yeah.
How long did it take you from, let's say, at the foot of the mountain to the summit and back? Now we're talking about Everest. How long did that take?
Foot of the mountain, I guess you're asking about Everest Base Camp, but it takes so much to get there also. You know, it took us like 18 days to get there. And fortunately, you said photos and people ask, are you in town? It's not like being on Mount Kenya. When you go to Mount Kenya at 14,000, on Everest, 14,000 people are growing potatoes. 17,000 people are growing potatoes. People are living there. People have hotels. So you go
people are dressed in T-shirts.
Yeah, you're going from one town to the other. And still, those small trails.
You're climbing Everest.
You're looking down, you can fall anytime. And a cow or a yak just comes by you. Boom. Like it's used. And those Sherpas, the same. And then when you got there, you have to spend like 5 days acclimatizing at 17,000. And you start doing these hikes. And then you start rotations. You go to Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. You come back, and then you start again. The most dangerous part is from Everest Base Camp to Camp 1. That's where the Kumbu Icefall is, which has a lot of ice that sometimes can collapse. Like this year, I think that honored deaths we had occurred there. I think 4 of them, if I'm not wrong, 1 Russian and 3 Nepalese. Up above there, it's not as bad, but it's very, very steep. So it took us from the base, it definitely took us at least 20 days, including the times you are acclimatizing to go up and down. And we were lucky because we got an early window and summited on 12th May. Some people are waiting for 28th, and right now the weather is just too hot.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Getting into monsoon season.
Wow. KG, there's a lot that you've taught us this morning. And there are many people who are listening to the conversation and just seeing the comments on social media. Many are feeling inspired. Just the way you speak, the way you have such great passion for all the work that you've done. And I think we just want to say, on behalf of everybody in the country, thank you for representing us up there. And congratulations for all the work that you've done.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And keep doing it. I mean, 62.
Yeah.
It's young. I mean, you're still young. And if your knees could, despite the doctor's warnings, if your knees could actually go to the highest point on earth.
Yeah.
Your knees are fine.
Why can't your knee just walk around Kenya?
Your knees are fine.
I can. I'm not going to do it for a while. Yeah. I just wish the government would recognize this. So far, I haven't had anything. And I'm content.
Wait,
but
what?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm content, but when it goes to the government, I feel like then it touches more people.
Yeah.
People see the seriousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. I think that's the message that's going to the government. The president himself, particularly, he ought to hear this. Yeah. He ought to actually have sent out that recognition. Like, yes, I wish to congratulate KG for doing this. Asante sana for joining us, KG.
Karibu.
And come again soon. I'm sure that next time we'll ask people to call in and ask you very many questions. There are people who are budding mountaineers. They'd like to know 1 or 2 things.
Okay.
KG, keep it here for Kenya's biggest conversation. The next hour, we want to talk to somebody who is from the Johns Hopkins University talking about Kenya, the port of Mombasa. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Supreme Court Judge Isaac Lenaola will spearhead bar bench talks to look into concerns raised by the Law Society of Kenya over revised court rules gagging litigants from commenting or petitions filed at the top court. The rules published at the Kenya Gazette seek to refrain parties from commenting on merits of a case once the same commences at the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Martha Koome mandated Lenaola to lead the talks following a courtesy visit by LSK President Eric Theuri. A section of internally displaced persons in Nyanza region have petitioned the National Assembly to fast-track their compensation following the losses incurred during the post-election violence. The IDPs, mainly victims of the 2007-2008 post-election violence from Kisumu, Kisii, Nyeri and Homa Bay counties, said they have undergone untold suffering after they were forcefully evicted from their land and business premises during the skirmishes. Appearing before the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security in Kisumu, the IDPs claimed they were yet to receive any compensation as promised by the government. And Machakos Deputy Governor Francis Malindi received and flagged off for distribution to all health facilities assorted medical supplies worth 60 million shillings from Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. The supplies include medicines for common infectious diseases, pain relievers for both in- and outpatients, medicine for chronic illnesses, and emergency drugs. And the Ministry of Health has announced that 63 people tested positive for COVID-19 from a sample size of 2,070, marking an increase in the positivity rate to 3% of the cases. 56 are Kenyans, while 7 are foreigners. This as the ministry is asking you to continue being diligent in observing COVID-19 protocols as the cases are rising fast. And agriculture ministers from 25 African coffee-growing countries have signed a declaration in Nairobi to have coffee included in the list of strategic commodities under the African Union. Dubbed the Nairobi Declaration, the agreement seeks to ensure that coffee is given more attention in the continent in terms of being financed adequately. Speaking to the media after the official opening of the first African Coffee Summit, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya said the signing of the declaration is a big milestone in the history of the coffee sector in the African continent. Nyeri County will utilize private agricultural farms that lie fallow to grow 10 million trees in 10 years. The county also proposes stringent bylaws to protect the forest covers against uncontrolled harvesting for more sustainable wood products while cushioning against food insecurity and adverse climate change. Speaking during the launch of the 2021-2030 Forest Landscape Restoration Strategy, Governor Francis Kimemia said the move aimed at increasing the forest landscapes to 201,255 hectares from the current forest landscape of 8,348 hectares. Russia has made an all-out effort to capture the rest of the industrial region of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine. This as President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Moscow of seeking to commit genocide across the eastern Donbas. As the fighting intensified, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba aired Kyiv's increasing frustration with the West, accusing allies of dragging their feet on arms deliveries and telling his German counterpart that Ukraine needs heavy weapons as soon as possible. Russian forces are now closing in on several urban centers, including the strategically located Severodonetsk and Luhansk. Luhansk is part of the Donbas, the industrial basin comprising that region and Donetsk. And U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has called for vigorous competition with China to preserve the existing global order, but said the United States is not seeking a Cold War. In a long-awaited speech billed as the most comprehensive statement to date on China by President Joe Biden's administration, Blinken said that Beijing posed the most serious long-term challenge to the international order, despite months of U.S. focus on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, building up in most parts of the city a few minutes after 8 o'clock this Friday. Langata Road is quite busy as you get to that interchange at Timor. And we're also looking at quite some action in the CBD. Coming off Kamkunji, Landis Road is absolutely jam-packed. Inbound traffic is really heavy, bumper to bumper, as you get to that roundabout. all parts of the CBD seem to be quite something as well. Muranga Road, and we're also looking at Chiromo, really busy. State House Road, coming out onto Chiromo. Ring Road Western's also doing the thing this morning. The Thika Superhighway, hot and heavy since 7 o'clock, as well as Kiambu Road, which is back-to-back, bumper-to-bumper in both directions. So it is Friday, and we'll see this action for some time. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127. Let's keep things moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7 minutes
only
after
way
8.
to start your day.
Good morning. Welcome to Friday. If you're just joining us, this is Kenya's biggest conversation on SpiceFM. SpiceFM KE on Facebook, SpiceFM KE on YouTube. CT Muga has the day's proverb. Oh, sorry. No, we are also live now on KTN Home. Good morning to everybody joining us on TV. Bwana Muga?
Yes. Proverbs from TZ, as in Tanzania. Okay. Even flies have ears.
Even flies have ears.
All creatures, great and small, have a capacity to listen. Again, all creatures, great and small, have a capacity to communicate. Not necessarily speak, but communicate.
All creatures, great and small. Okay.
The Lord God made them all.
Yes, Sunday school.
Now, let's talk about some international news with a local context. And this is with regards to the Chinese debt. Kenya debt owed to China. We know that there are billions of shillings that we've borrowed to finance various infrastructure projects, and this is from China. And then we also know that there have been questions and push to have some sort of transparency in the kind of deals that Kenya has entered into with its lenders. For example, the Exim Bank of China. For example, if we talk about the SGR project, the Okoh Mombasa coalition, which brings together several civil society organizations, has gone to court, basically seeking to compel the government to release the contract for SGR. What are the details? How much have we borrowed? And what are the repayment terms? And what if we default? What happens? This is on the back of the global conversation that has been spearheaded all over the media on something that's been sweetened and christened as the Chinese debt trap. And the conversation goes that, in these countries, when you have debt with where you've taken some loan from China, there are some conditions that where governments are signing off some key infrastructure. In the event of default, then the Chinese government or the Chinese Exim Bank or Chinese corporations will start to operate some key infrastructure. Remember the issue of Sri Lanka and the port in Sri Lanka, and saying that because of the Rajapaksa family and their government borrowing heavily from China, they got to a point where the Chinese authorities started to take over the operations of the port in Sri Lanka. Is it true or is it not? In Kenya, there was a talk of SGR and our port of Mombasa being collateral. And the question has been asked, is it true or is it not? The president himself has said, absolutely not true. What are you people talking about? The details of these contracts have not been released. At some point, in one of the reports by the former Auditor General, it seemed to mention, the then Auditor General in the 2017-2018 audit of the National Ports Authority, he warned that the Port Authority's assets, of which the Mombasa port is the most valuable, risked being taken over by the China Exim Bank if Kenya defaulted on the $3.6 billion railway loans. The port is East Africa's main international trade gateway. It was launched in 2017. This SGR was intended to seamlessly link the port of Kenya's capital to Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and other parts. Now, there is a team from Johns Hopkins University led by Deborah Brottingham, who is the director of China Africa Research Initiative, who've been working on this and seeking to get the details and understand, is it true or is it not? Now, Ms. Deborah Brottingham's article was published in The Conversation, and the title is Mombasa Port, How Kenya's Auditor General Misread China's Standard Gauge Railway Contracts. I'll read 2 or 3 paragraphs of this. The Kenyan fears mirrored another tale widely circulated earlier in 2018. In that story, China was said to have seized the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka when the island nation had trouble repaying Chinese loans. This debt trap diplomacy allegation was later shown to be a myth, but not before it sparked fears about other large Chinese projects. The Chinese and Kenyan governments both denied that Mombasa port was collateral, but they offered no explanation. Perplexed by the leaked letter, our team of scholars and practitioners of international commercial law and project finance spent months collecting primary documents and mapping the project's contractual structure. To our surprise, she says, we found that the collateral rumor stemmed from a seemingly tiny but critical misreading by the Auditor General. The Chief Auditor mistakenly labelled the Ports Authority as a borrower responsible for repaying the Chinese railway loans. He charged that by waiving sovereign immunity, Kenya's government had expressly guaranteed that the Ports Authority's assets could be used to repay the Chinese loan. The Auditor General was mistaken in both targets. For the Auditor General and many others, the debate over the railway and Mombasa port was complicated by technical terms and practices. These are used routinely in the law and business of international project finance, but are unfamiliar outside these arenas. So people who don't really understand these things may get confused. Now, we'll be speaking to Ms. Deborah shortly, who's joining us via video link from the US. And she'll explain this to us. But here, and after reading this article, guys, what comes to mind, City?
Well, that last bit that you read, that directly talks about technical terms that is often used in the world of finance. You're talking about project finance. You're talking about business finance. To a layman, it's financing a project, financing a business, and in many people's minds, a business is a project. And yet, clearly there are details, and specifically what it is that is actually used for collateral. Most people think you need a fixed asset, you need a building, you need land, you need a port, whereas that may not necessarily be the case. Sometimes it is what it is that that particular entity is able to realize in terms of income, that is what provides the security. Because the building in itself is nothing except a building. Its net worth is fixed, but the business that it does and what it generates, that in itself can provide adequate security, or it can provide competitive security if it's then needed. But then you require experts to explain many of these things, and I am certainly not an expert.
Yes. She says, although some public education would have been necessary, releasing the contracts, which Kenya's High Court ordered the government to do just last week, might have prevented the Auditor General's mistake and would have allowed debate on the facts rather than rumours. The 4 key stakeholders in the financing of the SGR were the National Treasury, who was the borrower, the Kenya Railways Corporation, that's a project company, the Kenya Ports Authority, and China Exim Bank, the lender. The figure, she puts a figure that shows the complicated contractual and payment arrangements. Now, the question for me is, Wanjiru Gekonyo and Halif Khalifa and the others have been trying for months, in fact going into years, to get details of this contract. Is she implying that she and her team of experts from the Johns Hopkins University were able to get these contracts?
to be able to have understood in the details
Yes.
that they say they have understood it.
Yeah, the deep contractual legalese arrangement of what exactly is happening. So, how do they get to know about this?
It's a valid question.
Yeah, because if we're really talking about, okay, so many people don't understand what this contract is all about. And of course, many people are not technically versed to even if this contract was actually published today, not many people would understand it.
You'll read it and simply not understand it. Or you'll understand it along the lines of whatever knowledge you currently have on such a subject. That's what you'll base your understanding on.
Sure, but you can't also run away from the realities that the technicalities that you speak about, which we often see in a lot of these financial documents, sometimes are done deliberately. That you wrap up the knowledge, or you wrap up what would be understanding in technical jargon. Because what it does is that it throws you off from the very beginning. Unless you're really vested in finding out what the details of all of this thing is when you're probably going to delve a little bit deeper. But if once you start to go through it, you're hit in the face with all these technicalities, the likelihood of you putting it aside is very high. So then you have to ask, was it deliberate? Was it deliberate, or is it deliberate on many counts to make it so technical so that you don't have an understanding? Or that it is hidden in plain sight so that you don't see it? Or that this misunderstanding that everybody talks about also then was planned. We don't want you to understand so that you don't really know what is going on and what was signed for.
Let's see if we can get Deborah on the line. Deborah, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us, Deborah. Deborah Bortigam is the Director of China-Africa Research Initiative at the Johns Hopkins University. And we are talking about this article of yours that was published on The Conversation, which is a publication that looks at various conversations around the country and the globe. Specifically, yours is saying that Kenya's Auditor General misread the details of the contract with the SGR. Just take us through the details. First of all, what had the Auditor General said in that audit report of 2017-2018? And then what did your team do?
Well, I think we have to back up a little bit to look at the letter, the management letter, because for most Kenyans, that's the only part of the audit report that's ever been seen. So the management letter is what was leaked in 2018. And so that's what led to this whole idea that Mombasa port was collateral, because the management letter is where these mistakes were first circulated. And so the management letter is something that accompanies the audit of the Kenya Ports Authority that was being done that year. And so the auditor is supposed to point out all of the risks that the company that's being audited faces. And so what they pointed out in this management letter were several things. One was they had some questions about the risks that they wanted Kenya Ports Authority to answer. And the second thing was that they pointed out some risks that they understood. And so from this letter that was circulated by a whistleblower at Kenya Ports Authority.
Yes, go ahead.
Am I still on?
Yes,
you are.
Okay. This letter stated fairly clearly that the Auditor General believed that Kenya Ports Authority and the Kenyan government had put Kenya Ports Authority's assets at risk in the standard gauge railway as essentially as collateral for the standard gauge railway contract, which was financed by the Chinese bank, China Exim Bank. And so this letter circulated, but the Auditor General's report that was attached to the letter and eventually finalized a few months later was not released for another 2 years. And so the report itself provided enough information for us to figure out what was going on. But for 2 years, this leaked letter, 3 pages of this letter, was the only information available. So that's a little bit of the background for this puzzle. So let me point to one particular thing that the
Auditor General said. He said that Kenya Ports Authority was a borrower on the Standard Gauge Railway loan. And so we, in the leaked management letter, we were very perplexed by why he would say this. There wasn't any evidence. But the audit report 2 years later provided us with the explanation. And what happened in the audit report was that it became clear that the Auditor General had misread a small clause in the contract. It's more a matter of English than of technicalities.
So even your own research, Deborah, did you get to see the contract that has been signed between whoever the borrower is in this particular case? This is the National Treasury and the China Exim Bank.
Deals like the Standard Gauge Railway have many different contracts. And so what the legal side of our team pointed out that these contracts could go for 1,000 pages or so. So there could be many different components, maybe even a dozen. And so it's not just the particular loan contract, it's the contracts between Kenya Ports Authority and Kenya Railway Corporation. There's the payment arrangement agreement. So there are many different ones. We had access to some of these contracts. We didn't have the actual loan contract. However, we have pieces of it that were released by people who have seen it. And we also have seen many Chinese loan contracts, more than 100 that we've read. So we know how they work in general.
Okay, just take us through the basic structure of how such a contract would work, because I guess the fear here, even what the management letter by the Auditor General was raising, was with regards to the repayment. Let me just read an excerpt of what the leaked management letter was saying. The payment arrangement agreement substantively means that the Kenya Ports Authority's revenue would be used to pay the government of Kenya's debt to China Exim Bank if the minimum volumes required for consignment are not met as per Schedule 1. The China Exim Bank would become a principal in over KPA if the Kenya Railways Corporation defaults in its obligations and China Exim Bank exercises powers over the escrow account security. KPA assets are exposed since the authority signed the agreement, where it has been referred to as a borrower under Clause 17.5, and any proceeding against its assets would be the lender would not be protected by sovereign immunity, since the government waived the immunity on the Kenya Ports assets by signing this agreement. Basically, the fear here is when it comes to payment, if Kenya Revenue Authority is not able, if Kenya Railways Corporation is not able to get cargo onto the SGR that then meets the revenues required to repay the debt, then we'll start going into the other corporations. In this particular case, the Kenya Ports Authority.
So the particular contract, one of the contracts that we have is what's called a take or pay agreement. And that's between Kenya Railway Corporation and Kenya Ports Authority. So it's one of the contracts in this whole complex that we mapped. And I think that's one of our contributions, the mapping of these contractual relationships. So it's complicated. There are a number of different actors here. So Kenya Ports Authority and Kenya Railway Corporation have a take or pay agreement. That's the only contract that Kenya Ports Authority is liable for.
What does it say? What does take or pay mean?
The take or pay means that these are common clauses. They're very standard in international project finance. For example, if you have an international bank providing a loan for an electricity project, they want to be sure that there's a buyer for the electricity.
Yeah.
So they ask the producers, say of the hydropower, to sign a contract with a buyer. So it might be a utility company.
Yeah.
And so the buyer agrees to take the service, take the power for a certain period of years, say 15 years, 20 years, or the term of the loan, in order to provide a guaranteed market for the hydropower project. And therefore the bank will say, okay, you've got a market, it's guaranteed, now we think this is a bankable project because we know you're going to have revenues. So when China Exim Bank is looking at Kenya Railway Corporation and the Kenyan government is the borrower, but the Kenyan government wants to on-lend the loan to Kenya Railway Corporation. So China Exim Bank says, well, Kenya Railway Corporation is a money-losing company. We don't want to lend to Kenya, and you're going to on-lend to KRC, and how are you going to repay the loan? So they arranged this take-or-pay agreement with the railway's major client. So Kenya Ports Authority is the major client of the railway. It's not all of the passengers. That's not a profitable part for the project. It's the freight. And so it goes seamlessly from the port onto the railway, off to Mombasa and beyond. That's where the revenues are generated. So then Kenya Ports Authority signed that agreement, just like the utility. They promised to take a certain amount of the railway services for 15 years. And if they didn't take that, they would have to pay what they guaranteed to take. They have to pay the same amount.
Okay.
So that's a take-or-pay agreement.
Okay.
So that's one important part of this. But that is
so Deborah, are we saying in essence, if I can just make a clarification here, that in terms of collateral, we are not saying that KPA and its assets then were put on the table in the event that there's default, that KPA and its assets then were not collateral for this loan agreement?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
KPA's only role in this project is to serve as the client of Kenya Railway Corporation and to take that service or pay KRC. So they're not even directly paying China Exim Bank.
Yeah.
So it's going into this escrow account.
Okay.
So that's, and so what the Auditor General got wrong when, in that piece that you read, he said if KRC defaults in its obligations, then KPA is liable somehow. But that's not correct. KPA is only responsible for the amount of freight that it signed in the take-or-pay agreement. It doesn't have any responsibility to repay the loan. It has a responsibility to pay Kenya Railway Corporation. And then Kenya Railway Corporation is part of the structure of repaying the loan, but the loan is essentially being repaid out of the Railway Development Levy.
So we're going to take a break shortly, and then we come back and get into the finer details of this, because clearly there are several layers of this. You have experience having seen several other Chinese loans or loans lent by China to several other governments and corporations around the world. And you're telling us what you're seeing here is similar to what you've seen elsewhere. But also, let's look at the context, Deborah, that globally, this has been termed as the debt trap. So is it possible that, some of these contracts, all of them that you've seen, also have a way of making sure that, if you're not able to do this, then other parts of your infrastructure are also lied to or tied to this loan? That's a conversation we'll have after this quick break. Thank you very much for joining us, Deborah. Stay on the line. It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Deborah Broughtingham is a director at China-Africa Research Initiative at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies in the USA. We are talking about the Mombasa port. Did Kenya's Auditor General misread China's standard gauge railway contracts? Do we all understand what this contract is all about? Should we really be worried? She says her and her team have looked at several other contracts around the world, and she's like, well, this is just like one of those. Kenya Revenue Authority tells you that if you have a dispute with them over tax, what you could do is you go into the tax dispute resolution mechanism. If you go into the tax dispute tribunal, have a hearing there, and you feel dissatisfied, please, instead of before you go to court, and then this issue goes and takes very many years in court, there's an alternative dispute resolution mechanism that was set up by KRA in 2015. It's effective, it works, it's simple, it's fast, it's efficient.
And it's transparent.
Very transparent. And it only takes you 90 days to have your issues resolved with KRA. Win-win for everybody. Soon we'll be having somebody also here from KRA to tell you, okay, so how do you take advantage of this? Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to SpiceFM.
Standard Group's Farm Kenya initiative is the umbrella entity for all agriculture-related channels, activities and investments. The media platforms under the Farm Kenya initiative include the Smart Harvest Weekly Pullout in the Saturday Standard, KTN Farmers TV, a 24-hour agribusiness TV station, Maisha Kilimo, a weekly agriculture show on Radio Maisha, AgriTalk on SpiceFM's morning show The Situation Room, and Grind na Agribiz on Vibes Radio morning show Morning Vibes. Find us online at www.farmers.co.ke, an integrated website that creates and aggregates agri-content, hosts a digital marketplace, and wide range of agri-data. Other platforms include specialized events such as the annual Mkulima Expo, quarterly Farmers Kenya Breakfast, and dedicated social media platforms at Farm Kenya 254. Farm Kenya.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's 16 degrees and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 25 and lows of 14. And it's raining in Nyeri at 18, highs of 25 today. 17 degrees and mostly cloudy at going to highs of 23 in Eldoret. It's raining in Mombasa at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Mirrored in Kagambi at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 26 today. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And we're looking at cloudy conditions in Kakamega. We'll go to highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's raining in Kampala at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 17. While it's mostly sunny at 25 in Dar es Salaam, we'll see highs of 32 and lows of 24. 12 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 20 and lows of 8. And at 24, it's mostly clear in Lagos, highs of 31 and lows of 24. 22 will be the low, and that's what it is right now in a sunny Kinshasa, going to highs of 30.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to
All right,
Spice
still picking up
FM.
in certain parts of the city. Not looking too bad on Rilo Dingaway as you go to connect towards Gong Road, which, by the way, is free and clear into the city. Somebody must have sent a memo about something not happening on Gong Road. It's happening on State House, however, going out towards Chiromo. That whole area is quite packed, and then spilling out to Wangari Maathai. In between, though, towards the underpass, not much action. Between Survey and the underpass, totally different story. Inbound traffic on Kiambu Road, bumper to bumper. Same thing on Limuru Road. Everybody connecting to Outer Ring today should not have a problem except for that little tad of traffic on Kangunda Road, Lunga Lunga, Jogo Road, Likoni towards the interchange of Mombasa Road. You will find some traffic there, but you should be able to get out of it without too much of hairs lost. Let's keep an eye on things and talk on SpiceFM. KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 25 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on SpiceFM, on YouTube, on Facebook, on KTN Home, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga. Our guest joining us from the USA is Deborah Broughtingham. She's the Director, China-Africa Research Initiative at the Johns Hopkins University, and she's talking about a leaked report in around 2018 on the Auditor General's management report from KPA, where he seemed to have raised concerns about the kind of relationship between the Kenya Ports Authority, the Kenya Railways Corporation, the China Exim Bank, with regards to the SGR project. And Deborah is saying, well, we have seen several other contracts of this nature, and just looking at this particular one, nothing untoward really. The relationship that she has explained so far between this whole and all these entities, Kenya Railways signed a deal with the Kenya Ports Authority that the Kenya Ports Authority is going to supply cargo and freight onto the SGR of a certain amount over the next X number of years. And the deal is take or pay. You bring the cargo onto me, or you pay me if you don't bring me the cargo. Now, there's a diagram that you have published here in your article, in the conversation, Deborah, which is quite complicated. The complicated contractual and payment arrangements between the various entities in government. If I just look at it, primary loan agreement is between the Exim Bank and the National Treasury. That's the borrower, that's the government of Kenya. The Railway Development Fund is what's supposed to repay this loan. Then we have a line here with the Kenya Railways Corporation, an escrow account, loan payment, that is principal and interest, going into Exim Bank. You have four parties payment agreement, and this is between the Exim Bank, the Kenya Ports Authority, the Kenya Railway Corporation, the National Treasury, who's the borrower. We have the on-lending loan, you've got the customer, it's like you said, even in your own diagram, it's complicated, Deborah. Just break it down. So who pays the loan? Who's taken the loan? Who pays the loan? Who repays in the event of a default?
The National Treasury is the borrower, and so they are responsible for repaying the loan. And I think there's another really important aspect about this confusion, and it's happened in many countries, actually. We can see confusion about Chinese loan contracts happening in Uganda with the Entebbe airport contract. We see it happening in Montenegro with a big highway contract, and even in Zambia with several of the contracts there. And this confusion is about a second legal clause, which is quite misunderstood. It's called a waiver of sovereign immunity. Now, when I first heard that term, waiver of sovereign immunity, I thought, what is this? I have a PhD, and I've never heard that term before. So I had to consult with legal colleagues, other professors who teach in the international law program. I said, what does this mean? So they explained it to me. And they said, this is a very standard phrase that is in all international commercial project finance contracts and many other kinds of international contracts. And why do they have this? They have this because sovereign states, under international law, they have sovereign immunity, which means two things. They can't actually be sued in court in other countries. So the government of Kenya or other governments, if a bank, if they don't pay, say, and a bank wants to bring a lawsuit, they can just say, oh, sorry, we're immune from this. We have sovereign immunity. Bye-bye. So every bank and then the second part of it is even if, say, there was a lawsuit and the government of Kenya didn't show up because they said we have sovereign immunity, we're not coming, and the judge said, okay, you still have to pay, they have immunity from enforcement. So they don't have to actually enforce any foreign judgment either. So they don't. So because they're immune from these things under international law, these contracts contain a waiver of sovereign immunity. Now, this is very, very standard. It just means if there's a dispute, it doesn't even have to be a default, it can be any dispute, that it can be arbitrated or litigated outside the country. So no one will actually give a loan without that.
But Deborah,
no international bank,
you
whether
say
they're Chinese or
you say over the very many years of practice and academia, you had never come across such contracts until contracts involving loans with China were involved.
That's because my expertise is in China and Africa. I'm not a lawyer. So my colleagues all said to me, who have been involved in my law colleagues, they said, "Oh yes, we've been doing this for forever. You know, this is what international lawyers, commercial lawyers do. We write contracts like this, and they all have the waiver of sovereign immunity. It's absolutely standard. In fact, they said, if you didn't put this into a contract, it would be grounds for professional malpractice." So it's so standard. Now, why didn't I know about this? Because nobody's really looking into these contracts. It hasn't become an issue because I'm not sure why, but it's not been out there as a concern.
Deborah, what you say is easy. Sorry, go ahead, please. I'm saying,
just that it's
yes.
No, you go.
Oh, no. I insist. You go first.
So I'll make one more point about this. These things they're very technical and complex, and these legal terms, amongst lawyers, they use these terms all the time. It's the language they speak. But we lay people don't speak that language. We don't speak with lawyers in that language unless we're buying a house or we don't have this technical expertise. I didn't have it. Most people don't have it. So that's why our team had to bring in a lawyer to explain how all these things work.
Okay.
And that's how we were able to find out that apparently the Auditor General did not consult his lawyers because he also did not seem to understand this waiver of sovereign immunity.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that in the event of there being an issue, the way of resolving it would be to go to arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that the worst case scenario? Meaning, country has borrowed money, they have defaulted, or there are issues in payment, and the only thing that can actually happen is that they'll go to arbitration. There are no clauses that allows the lender to take any other action that may be deemed punitive beyond arbitration.
That's correct. So arbitration will then, if there's a dispute, it will be arbitrated. So there will be, it's usually three different, if Kenya defaulted on this contract, they would go to arbitration, and Kenya would appoint a lawyer, and the China Export Bank would appoint a lawyer, and the two of those lawyers would then agree on a third. So there'd be three people. And they would, and then the case would be discussed and arbitrated.
Deborah, can we come from the point? I mean, just what you've said, that you have, you've dealt with information like this from other quarters as well. Now, we talk about the technicality of some of these contracts, which, by design, is done with a lot of legal jargon. Is this deliberate to get to a situation where folks just actually don't understand what is in those contracts? I'm asking this question because if we look on this side of the pond, there's quite a lot in terms of speculation as to the reasons why the information is not plain as day. Why make it so difficult to understand if it's something so simple, like you've told us, that, it's take and pay, and that it should be clear in the event of a default, this is what would happen. Do you find that they use this language in a deliberate manner, or it's just the way things are?
There's nothing uniquely Chinese about this. This is what lawyers do. And they all get together, they all speak Latin. They don't speak Latin literally, but they have all these Latin. It's not in order to try to mystify those of us that aren't lawyers. It's just that this is developed into their own language. Just like economists use all of these technical terms when they're talking, or finance people. And they're not always understandable to people who don't understand, net present value, internal rate of return, and so on. So it's not a deliberate effort to mystify. It's a technical expertise. It takes 3 years to go to law school and learn all that stuff. So I think maybe there's some they are trying to protect their business by making it a little bit
their trade.
So we have to hire other lawyers in order to understand these contracts. But have you ever taken out a credit card, and have you read all of that? Pages and pages of things that you've signed.
Always complicated.
Legal agreements.
Always complicated. Deborah, I want to ask, you've looked at other contracts, or you've looked at other deals. Let's say this is the ones you've mentioned in Uganda, over the Entebbe airport, in Zambia, in Montenegro, in Sri Lanka. What the key issue here, even as you look at the global conversation about the debt trap, what is chalked into these contracts as a way out in the event of a default?
Well, in any loan default, whether it's the World Bank or the IMF or, China Exim Bank or Citibank, there will be an arbitration of some kind. There will be, discussion. And what we know from other lenders, for example, the Germans, there's an example that I was following in Zimbabwe, where a German bank lent to a Zimbabwe project, and Zimbabwe didn't pay. And so it did go into arbitration, and the German bank, KfW, did get a judgment. But then the problem arises for the international bank. How are they going to enforce that judgment? They can't just go to Zimbabwe and grab, this was a steel mill. They can't just go and grab the steel mill. It's just not feasible. And so what they try to do is they try to what's called attach assets outside the country. So it might be Zimbabwe Airways plane. Or in this case, they tried to attach some houses in South Africa that were owned by the Zimbabwe government. But they failed. The South African government wouldn't, their law courts wouldn't enforce it for Germany. And so that's likely what would happen in Kenya if there actually was a default. It wouldn't even, for the Chinese, it wouldn't even go to court. There would be discussions about it, and the Chinese would extend the terms of the railway loan. That's what we see happening in the Chinese cases. They just extend the terms. They give countries a longer time to repay it.
From what you say, essentially, the whole issue arose from simply one discipline explaining what it is they do in a language that they understand, and another discipline trying to interpret it without having the knowledge that that other discipline has. And then when you throw it into a setup like ours, where there is a decent amount of mistrust for the government. So it is far easier to believe the narrative that certain national assets had been hawked off, certain national assets had been put as collateral, and should there be a default, they would be taken. So have I summed this thing up correctly?
That is just an excellent summary. And I would point to mistrust, which has another element, which is that the Kenyan government has never released all of these contracts. Unlike, for example, Cameroon, which released all of the contracts from China, the World Bank, from all of the lenders, and they were posted on the internet. So if they had released the contracts, there would still be a lot of confusion because these contracts are really complicated. But then the lawyers in Kenya could explain it all on shows like yours. And it wouldn't have to be people like me coming in from outside to do this research.
I'm interested in knowing, Deborah, when you say that you got access to, some elements of these contracts, how did you come across these contracts when there have been bodies in this country, institutions and organizations that have been seeking transparency on these contracts and have even gone as far as going to the court to demand that these contracts be released? How did you and your team get access to them?
Well, there are two answers to that. One is that the loan contract was obtained by someone at the Nation, I think was the Sunday Nation, and he quoted pieces of it. So we have some important clauses from the loan contract that he quoted in his report. So we have some of that. And and then we saw these are the same as the contracts we've seen 100 other contracts. It's very, very normal. But the second thing is that we got a copy of the take-or-pay agreement. We have the actual contract. This is a totally Kenyan contract between two Kenyan corporations. So I think it's not as, perhaps as held as tightly. So we were able to obtain that. So those are, and then there are a few other pieces that the Auditor General had. He had a third contract, the four parties payment arrangement. So that was released to the Auditor General because Kenya Ports Authority was a party to that. Now, the Kenya government did not release the loan contract to the Auditor General because Kenya Ports Authority is not a party to that. So, according to the Kenya government, the Auditor General doesn't need to see the loan contract.
Now, when it comes to the take or pay, in fact, we have issues maybe with that. Number one, it's the details of a take or pay agreement. We have currently the conversation in the country is a take or pay agreements that have been signed between independent power producers and the power utility company Kenya Power. And the issue has been renegotiate this because it becomes too expensive how much you've committed to taking or paying. The question is a take or pay the only way we could have this contract done, or could you have take any other way of arranging to make sure that the railway is actually operating, it's getting its business, but also to make sure that Kenya Ports Authority is not tied to putting all its cargo there. If the customers of Kenya Ports Authority do not want to use the railway, then what? Kenya Railways has to pay? Kenya Ports Authority.
This project needed all of these other what is called credit enhancements in order to be bankable. Just the railway company on its own cannot repay this loan. They're not going to. The Standard Gauge Railway is not going to make enough revenues just through passengers and freight to repay the loan. So that's why the bank said you have to do something else, or else, it's not a bankable project. So that's where the Railway Development Fund becomes very important. And it's been very important since 2013. It's been public. This is in the parliamentary records, all of these credit enhancements, the details of the offtake agreement, they're all in public records at Parliament.
Okay. I have a call on the line.
So we have paid a lot of those.
Deborah, there's a call on the line. Let's hear what Alan would like to ask. Alan, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Alan?
I first heard of Deborah from her book, Gift from the Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I think she the problem is that she's splitting hairs. And the reason I think so is the following. The take or pay, one, she has not seen the contract. Two, the take or pay agreement, the point the auditor was making is that the take or pay agreement is a contingent liability on the books of KPA. Today, the IPPs you are talking about, Eric, Kenya Power signed, has been signed between Kenya Power and the IPPs. Yet, there are contingent liabilities on the books of the government. So, even though technically KPA's assets, the physical collateral has not been pledged, all assets of the government are exposed. You remember what happened to us with the Anglo-leasing contract? When the Anglo-leasing company wanted to take over our embassy. The point is, the state remains exposed. All assets, including KPA, are exposed if there's a default.
Let's hear what Deborah has to say on this. Deborah, respond to this.
I think there's a big difference between a specific asset being used as collateral, for example, Mombasa Port, and a very general, the sovereign immunity waiver, which states that all of Kenya's, everything owned by the government is potentially at risk. So what the caller is suggesting is that, this is I suppose it's true that in a very vague way that everything that the Kenyan government owns anything might be at risk, but in a practical terms, it's anything. But in practical terms, it's really not the case. So if it was a collateral, you would have to have a lien on it. It would have to be registered. It would be very specific that the loan defaults, boom, you have to give up the collateral. But you can imagine if there's a default situation, Kenya government is not going to be saying, okay, China Exim Bank, just come here. What do you want? Do you want this building? Do you want that highway? Do you want it just doesn't work that way.
Pick something. Thank you very much, Deborah. Sorry, as you conclude.
Can I say one more thing about the you have to conclude?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've got to conclude now.
Okay, the contingent... Okay, all right, I'll stop.
Well, Deborah, thank you. Thank you for joining us and thank you for speaking to us. Deborah Broughtingham is the director of a China-Africa Research Initiative at Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, speaking to us about, just trying to shed light on the kind of deals that are signed between governments and entities. In this particular case, the SGR contracts. What is the role of the National Treasury, of the Kenya Ports Authority, of the Kenya Railways Corporation, of the China Exim Bank, and how are they related? Did the Auditor General's leaked report have a misreading of this particular contract and the understanding of it? That's what we've been discussing. Keep it here for more conversations coming up on SpiceFM and SpiceFM KE on YouTube and Facebook. Next hour, we talk about Kalonzo Musyoka and his strategy for this general election. His legal advisor will be with us in the studio. It's now 9 a.m.
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Settle. The Kenya National Defence College is today hosting its 24th graduation ceremony in Karen. The unique graduation, which will be celebrated alongside the NDC's 25th anniversary and will be presided over by Chief of Defence Forces General Robert Kiboshi. NDC as a centre targets to prepare senior selected military and equivalent civil servants from Kenya and their counterparts from the selected friendly countries for higher responsibilities in the strategic direction and management of security and other related areas of public policy. Before the establishment of the NDC, Kenya officers trained abroad. Now, members of Seriousness squatters group clashed with the police over a court order that directed that the over 24,000 acres of land owned by late MP Mark Toh be surveyed pending the court's final judgment. Drama ensued when police stormed the disputed land and found the squatters with their surveyor at the land. The Environment and Lands Court in Eldoret had reinstated its earlier orders, directing the police to provide security to surveyors and officials of the Seriousness squatters group to survey the land situated near Eldoret International Airport. The more than 1,000 squatters have been embroiled in a land ownership tussle with the family of the late Mark Toh since 2007. In the order by Justice Elijah Obaga, surveyors were to set up beacons and map out public utilities from the disputed land. Public institutions in the contestant farm include the Eldoret International Airport, Moi University, public primary and secondary schools, and public roads. Uasin Gishu County Commander Ayub Gitonga, however, distanced the police from the blame, saying that the court had only reviewed its orders but did not give police any direct order to provide security to the surveyors. He said that there has been a confusion as the police received no official communication to provide security at the farm. And police have arrested 5 suspects, among them 3 women, for kidnapping a man and demanding for a ransom to set him free. Joseph Macau, Patrick Wekesa, Rehema Nyeri, Vigilance Wumbi, and Hadija Ongai were arrested by DCI detectives from Parklands. According to the DCI, Mumbi, Ongai, and Nyeri allegedly lured the man to a house in Madaraka where they held him hostage and asked for 100,000 shillings to set him free. Cyber forensic detectives stormed the house where the victim was being held. As suspects waited for an M-Pesa transaction of 100,000 shillings. The man had called his relatives, claiming that he had been involved in a road accident and needed 100,000 shillings for treatment. Detectives say the kidnapping gang is linked to an incident that occurred last month where a man was accosted in Parklands and robbed of 450,000 shillings. And St. Peter's Nyakamincha Secondary School has been closed indefinitely following the mysterious death of a Form 3 student whose body was discovered in a nearby river. The school's principal, Leonard Murungi, said he took the decision to close the school so as to end anxiety among learners and allow police investigations. The body of the Form 3 boy was discovered by a passerby in a shallow river adjacent to the school. According to Murungi, the boy did not have any indiscipline or health history. He said that the student was unwell on May 17th but was treated at Kinara Hospital in Nyamira town and discharged after complaining of fever symptoms. According to the deceased's colleagues, he was last seen Sunday morning when they had woken up for morning personal devotion before attending the Catholic Mass. At the school, his body was found in the river later that evening. This comes at a time when a number of students from the same school are hospitalized for what the principal referred to as fever outbreak in the school 2 weeks ago. He said that over 20 students are admitted and recuperating at Kinara Hospital in Nyamira town over the outbreak that hit the school 2 weeks ago. The Spanish health authorities reported 25 new cases of monkeypox, bringing the total tally of infections in one of the main hotspots of the recent outbreak to 84. The Health Ministry, which now considers all non-human origin pox infections as monkeypox after a positive test, while before only counting those confirmed by sequencing, also said there were 73 suspected cases. Minister of Health Carolina Darius said Spain would buy monkeypox vaccines as part of the EU joint vaccine purchases and confirmed that the West African strain, which has a fatality rate in about 1% of cases, was the one detected in Spain. And India has defended its decision to ban exports of wheat after initially saying it would help ease a global supply crunch created by the war in Ukraine. The Indian government imposed the ban 2 weeks ago amid concerns that an early heat wave has blighted harvest in the country and caused domestic prices to surge to a record high. Indian Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said that officials were worried about the price stability of the staple grain. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, still building up on Jogger Road, and we see quite some traffic then trying to get into the city. Landis Road in both directions, in and outbound, quite some traffic. And Uhuru Highway leading into the CBD, then out towards Westland, still doing the thing there. We're looking at the Thika Superhighway, which is still hot and heavy coming in to the CBD. Much better coming out of Westlands, not being an issue this morning at all. Getting out of traffic hours soon, but it looks like we're still having to contend with the morning traffic, but we'll deal with it, right? Yes. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the morning text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It's 7 minutes after 9. Good morning. Welcome to the final hour of the Kenya's biggest conversation today and this week. It's a first day of Friday. Yes.
It's the first day of Friday.
Friday is how many days?
Today it's 17. Or what did you say? 3.
Friday is 3 this week. Every day is 3 days. Okay. It's the first day of Friday. It'll be second day of Friday by around midday. Then the final day of Friday by around 3 a.m. or something. Didn't even knows, man. Days are so long. City, yes. How's the day's proverb?
From Tanzania. Even flies have ears. Every little creature has the capacity to
hear.
Yes. You may not think so, but they do. They may not use the same apparatus as we do, but they still get to hear.
So they are aware what is happening.
Precisely.
And because they can fit in places and can be assumed.
Yes, and can also avoid danger. Yes.
So they carry a lot of information.
They do.
Question is, what do they do with that information?
That's the question that only a human being would ask of a fly. Imagine a fly asking the same question of a human being and saying, this huge body, what does this person do with this body?
So you're gathering all this information. You have intel.
The intel is for other flies. So they can communicate.
Yeah. And tell them
what the flies tell each other. They even know when we have Christmas.
They do.
They do.
They do. Yeah. They know when you've bought meat.
Yes. They do.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, the party leader, Wiper Democratic Movement Party, a presidential aspirant in this election. What else? He's very many things. If you just do a casual Google search on the name Kalonzo, okay, the news articles that have been written about Kalonzo. In March, Kalonzo makes U-turn, says he's aware of signed Azimio deal at KICC. In May, Kalonzo ditches Azimio, picks running mate for revived state run. Crisis in Azimio as Kalonzo's presidential bid nears approval. Kalonzo, I know what I signed in Azimio deal. Kalonzo sets irreducible minimums to reconsider Azimio exit. how Uhuru Raila fixed Kalonzo in Azimio La Umoja agreement, how Wiper aspirants voted to have Kalonzo back in Azimio. Will Musyoka return to Raila or take up Ruto's offer? Crisis in Azimio as Kalonzo's presidential bid nears. Hey, so many things. All of them revolving around the last couple of years. Kalonzo Musyoka is among the principals who are leading the One Kenya Alliance. Then Kalonzo Musyoka is among the principals who are leading the leaders of the One Kenya Alliance into meeting with the leaders of the Azimio La Umoja coalition.
Party.
Then they formed the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition party. Then Kalonzo is among the members of the summit of the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition party. Then the One Kenya coalition party summit and meets and decides, council rather, meets and decides what we want to do is we are going to have a nice democratic selection of Raila Odinga's running mate. Kalonzo Musyoka says, come on, you're subjecting me to, no, I'm not going for interviews. He goes for interviews. He comes out of the interview. He says, it was a nice conversation. It wasn't an interview. It was just a conversation. Then he says, I am going it alone. Before that, his party stalwarts are going to court to demand the release of the contract that Kalonzo Musyoka's party had signed. Very many things. Today, Kalonzo Musyoka, as far as we remember, the last thing that he told us is he's running for president. And he has already identified his running mate. And we already know who the running mate is. And from the reports that we know from the IEBC, they've already presented their documents and the papers. Now, Kalonzo Musyoka's advisor, one of the advisors, is in the room with us. Kevin Katisia is senior counsel Kalonzo Musyoka's legal advisor. Kevin, you have a tough job. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, Indu and Munga, for honoring me with this invitation. And I believe we shall have a good discourse on this particular
Welcome
topic.
to the hot seat.
Thank you.
You are the what? Are you one of or are you the legal advisor?
One of.
One of the legal advisors to Kalonzo.
Yes.
So you consider yourself to be among those who are in the kitchen cabinet, who are in the engine room of Kalonzo's thinking.
Not really.
No?
But yes.
Not really, but yes.
All right.
So
if we ask
not
them all,
no, but yes.
it is not a no.
But it's a yes.
So if we were to ask a more pointed question,
Yes.
were you the one or among the ones who were maybe or maybe not advising him about do not go for this interview, go for the interview, it doesn't make sense? Or was this on his own accord? Just as a leader question to something else, of course.
Such a decision is not a legal decision. It's a political decision.
Sure.
And he has several political advisors. So I can't answer.
So you were
on
not
their
in that?
behalf. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now,
But
there was
the
also
question.
the question.
Yes.
That is the preamble.
Okay,
Yes.
now,
Yes.
Wiper Democratic Party, led by Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, entered into an agreement with Azimio.
Yes.
It is one of the parties that says they were not really sure what the legal document binding them to this coalition party actually said. Is this the case now that you're on the legal?
No, that is not the case.
Okay.
And I think many people, many Kenyans, including the media, got him wrong when he said that very many Secretary Generals of the constituent parties to Azimio who signed that document were not aware of what they were saying. He did not say that he was not aware.
Okay.
So I think for political reasons, people decided to take him out of context.
So he was aware
Fully aware.
of what he was signing.
Yes.
So why go to court seeking the release of this document?
He has not gone to court. Have you seen a case filed by Honorable Kalonzo Wiper?
Not yet.
Yes,
but there
so
was
he has not gone to court.
On that day,
Yes.
and I assume as one of his legal advisors, that's what had happened. The Sunday before the Monday,
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka's close advisors, including the Makueni MP, is it
Yes.
Makueni? Dan Manzo,
Yes.
come out in public and say, we are going to court tomorrow morning, demanding the release of this contract.
Yes.
And it's the same now Monday morning. It's the same Monday morning that Kalonzo addresses the country and says, I'm going it alone for the presidential ticket.
Yes.
So why were the lawyers saying they want to go to court?
You see, for you to address an issue, there are so many avenues you can use. And of course, one of the avenues is the court. But remember, Eric, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is a senior counsel. And when you are going to court, you look at the reliefs which you want to seek from the court. And going to court would mean maybe there is something which he wants to do, but he can't do. And from the context of that particular situation, when he was announcing his running mate on the 16th of May, the idea was for him to run alone for the presidency. So, of course, it is for the legal team's duty to look at the options, whether there can be any obstacles into him going alone for the presidency after signing the Azimio One Kenya coalition agreement. And we are of the opinion that there is nothing in law, known to law in Kenya, which can prevent him from running for presidency, even after his party wiper becoming a member of Azimio One Kenya.
To the best of your understanding, Kevin.
Yes.
Is this deal that Kalonzo's party signed when joining Azimio similar to the deal that Jubilee signed, that Maendeleo Chap signed, that PA signed? Are there different agreements, or is it the same agreement? We are all joining this one coalition, so we are all signing the same kind of agreement.
I think the agreement, Eric, was signed by all the parties at KACC. So it is the same agreement.
Have you had a view of this agreement?
Yes.
As Kalonzo's legal advisor?
Yes.
Is there an exit clause in this agreement?
There is an exit clause.
What does it say?
Which says that for any party to exit the coalition agreement, it can't do so, number one, 6 months to the general election. And if it is after the general election, 3 months after, and there must be a 90 days notice of exit.
Okay.
Yes.
So when Kalonzo Musyoka then goes and runs as presidential candidate under Wiper,
yes,
what does that mean with regards to this agreement that says any party wishing to exit cannot exit 60 days to an election, and there has to be 90 days prior?
But there's something, Eric, many people, many Kenyans are not understanding. You see, the coalition party is formed under the Political Parties Act, Section 10 to be specific, and the third schedule of the Political Parties Act, which provides that any parties which want to form a coalition party, they can do so by signing a coalition agreement, which is the one which was signed by Wiper and the other parties at KACC. But there is no provision in the agreement or in any other law indicating that once a party participates or forms a coalition party, it cannot produce a presidential candidate. Ask yourself, Eric, why all these constituent parties are producing candidates for other positions. There is no clause saying you can't produce a presidential candidate. Have you seen such a clause?
Clever. So the same way Jubilee has gubernatorial candidates,
yes,
ODM has senatorial candidates and gubernatorial candidates,
and
Wiper has candidates for MCA, MP, senator, woman rep.
Yes.
Nothing stops Wiper from having a candidate for president.
Exactly. Nothing stops. Okay. And that's why Eric, Kalonzo is a senior counsel, and he has good advisors around him.
Such as yourself.
Thank you. Okay. I believe so.
City, do you get that?
Well, I get it all right. We're listening to legalese here. Because what he's saying is logical. It makes perfect sense. The debate around the country has been based on what we understand the agreements to be. And we are likening it to our own experiences about such unions. We even liken it to unions such as marriage. That when you're married to one husband, you can now seek another husband.
Yeah.
Or you have married one wife. It's our understanding of such agreements. Yet, the legal provisions seem to point in the direction that our friend here is telling us. Because this is where now our understanding of the law and what the law actually stipulates now come into, should we say, a little collision? And now clarity seeking then has to be brought to bear, because when you understand bits and pieces of the law, especially when you're a layman, okay, it can be to your detriment, because from what we've seen, people who have wanted to be presidential candidates have divorced themselves from their previous political parties to run as independents. But what we forget is, one senior counsel, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, is not running as an independent. No, he's not.
He's running under
So
Wiper.
everything we've seen is for independent candidates. He's running under the Wiper ticket. Yes, now.
Within the coalition party.
Yes. It's a polygamous situation. So, yes, it is.
Do you want to tell me,
Yes.
Kevin, that this Azimio One Kenya agreement
Yes.
did not have any clause about having a single presidential candidate?
None whatsoever.
So Raila could have been a presidential candidate.
Yes.
Uhuru could have produced a presidential candidate for Jubilee.
Yes.
Wiper could have had.
Yes.
And all of you together as a coalition
Yes.
can have 7 presidential candidates.
Exactly.
So, but then it begs the question.
What the logic?
Yes, then why have a coalition?
Why in the first place? If everybody can be a presidential candidate, wasn't the point of the coalition in the first place to bring together those who then were of like mind and political leaning and say, this is our target, this is our goal? Because if everybody now wants to decide that they want to be presidential candidates, then you might as well stay on your own. Yes?
You are right. But you see, these are the loopholes in law which any person can take advantage of in such a situation, like the situation where Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is in now. Because one of the reasons, and I agree with Mr. Munga, of forming coalitions, not coalition parties, coalitions, is to ensure that these several parties can come together and drive one common agenda. Now, the idea of a coalition party came up so as to give this coalition a legal standing, whereby any coalition party now, if there is an agreement which was signed, can seek legal redress. If, for example, you saw NASA coalition, how it is broke up, because the constituent parties to the NASA coalition were saying, we agreed on this, but these other parties not doing what we agreed. But they could not go anywhere. They could not go to court. But you see now this idea of a coalition party, and you see under the Political Parties Act, that coalition agreement is deposited with the registrar of political parties. So if there's something you agreed there, and the other person is not doing what they're supposed to do, you can seek legal redress. You can go to court.
Counsel, as a lay person again,
yes.
I was about to give you some seniority here.
Thank you.
What it occurs to me is we are now dealing with this very delightful phrase we often come across, the letter and the spirit of the law. Okay? Letter of the law is there. The spirit was, look, we understand. There's going to be one president, but it was not in the letter. So because it's not in the letter, our friends here have decided
the spirit
we
will
want to
take
push
precedence.
this.
We understand, yes, but can we go back to the letter? And the letter clearly gives them the leeway. But the spirit was different.
What were you signing? What did you advise Kalonzo to sign? Did you advise Kalonzo to sign in spirit and letter? Or did you tell him just go and put your signature there?
I would say in both.
Both
because
spirit and letter.
Because when Azimio, La Umoja One Kenya was formed, and remember initially it was Azimio.
Yep.
Then they brought on board Okoh.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Okoh, all the Okoh principles. Now, and they even changed the name, Azimio La Umoja One Kenya. So the idea was for these two coalitions, or member parties of those coalitions, could come together and agree on who will be the flag bearer, who will be the deputy, the running mate, who will take this position and this position. That was the idea. So they negotiated. So anybody could have been nominated as a presidential candidate, even Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but now the coalition agreed.
It's going to be Raila.
It's going to be Raila.
Okay.
Then now the other question was who is going to be the running mate of Raila. Then of course you know the entire story of how the running mate was chosen.
Yes, and this is how we know it. We know that when the coalition was formed, a structure for the coalition was created.
Yes.
It created the council. It is the top decision-making organ of this coalition party. council chaired by Uhuru as chairman. It has Raila as the candidate. It has Kalonzo Musyoka as principal, Gideon Moi as principal, Charity Ngilu as principal, Martha Karua as principal, Sabina Chege is in there. And these ones met at KICC one day. And they came out and addressed the country at the steps of KICC.
Yes.
And they said, after having deliberations in there, all of us, we have all agreed on how we are going to select a running mate.
Yes.
We shall form a 7-member panel to select a running mate. Kalonzo was there nodding.
He even forwarded the name of one who would be on the panel.
On the panel, Kitui Senator Keyo Wambua. Then he met the lawyers, the legal advisors like you. Is that what happened? And you told him no. Because, I mean, why would he be standing there nodding, and then the next thing is we are complaining about the selection of running mate?
I think, Eric, I'll repeat myself and say that was a political decision, and it was properly advised by the political advisors. Yes, not a legal decision. I think I answered that in the beginning. Because
Actually, you didn't. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
There was a very decent attempt at answering the question, but you lawyered up on us, because there is no way you're going to make political decisions and ignore the legal advice that would actually be the very, very foundation on which you are making that decision. Because at the end of the day, all these political maneuvers and all these political things that we see, why is it that when things go awry, people end up in court? Because the legal position is always fundamental. So, either you gave the advice and you were ignored, or you figured this is politics. Let's play a long-term game here.
Yeah.
What options do we have? We know the treachery that we find in this particular terrain, and we know the things that happen. People say agree and then they change. So, in the event that this happens,
they'll come back to us.
We'll have the law on our side.
Yes, now, that probably is the sort of advice that the lawyers would give the politicians. Say, guys, you guys tend to be in a bit of a hurry doing things. Just hold. Think. What if? Because the what if is something that many politicians don't seem to think of very much, but the lawyers would. Am I getting you right, sir?
No, you are not. And I think, so as to make myself clear.
Yes.
You know,
one more time.
The process, Mr. Munga and Eric and Indu, of choosing a running mate. Actually, a running mate is nominated by the candidate. If it's a governor, running deputy governor, the governor candidate nominates. Now, in this case, the candidate for Azimio One Kenya is Raila Amolo Odinga. It is him to nominate a running mate. The process of nominating a running mate is not a legal process. The only part where it becomes legal is the qualifications. And the law says the qualifications of a deputy president must be the same as those of a president. Yeah. So the process of getting, so long as this president is qualified, and we all know all these people who apply to be running mates were all qualified to become president, the process was political. And the decision arrived at KCC was a political decision, because remember, Mr. Munga, after as Kalonzo joined Azimio La Umoja One Kenya, there were some members of Azimio who were not happy about that. And they formed their own caucus, and they called themselves Mwanzo Mpya. There's a name they gave themselves, because the idea which was given at KCC was that there will be 3 main principles to Azimio. So these people were dissenting, and they now formed a caucus. Now,
this is Kina Alfred Mutua and the governor of Kilifi and the others.
And the others,
who wanted to be the fourth leg.
The fourth leg, exactly, yeah. So, and now, so as to manage them and also take care of their issues, their interests, now a meeting was convened. And actually, that's why you hear some people saying some amendments were inserted to the agreement, So now, this idea of selecting a running mate by that selection panel was to enable all the parties, because there are so many parties, more than 26. So it is for all the parties to feel that they have a say in the management of the coalition, and that's why even in the formation of that selection panel, all the parties were involved in forming that panel. Yes. So that process of and whatever they agreed that somebody must, because initially, remember, they said somebody must go for the interview. That's what they said initially. Yeah. Then later, the chairperson, Dr. Noah Wekesa, said, you don't have to go for the interview. initially it was for someone to apply, but later they said the party
Parties
can
will nominate.
and just forward the papers. And but if somebody wants to go,
directly
they can go. Yeah. So there was no duty upon any candidate for that position to go for an interview. So it was, if you feel like you want to go there, maybe chat with somebody and catch up with the team, you are allowed. Yeah. So I think that entire process was political. Yeah. It was not legal, but I agree with you that every political step, of course, has to be guided by the legal direction. Because if something happens, then you have to retreat.
Your fallback position.
Exactly.
Counsel, all those processes,
yes,
at some point must and will always have consequences.
That is true.
And when they have consequences, that's when you come in.
Yes.
Because if among themselves they cannot resolve the issue,
yes,
what do they then do? They come to you and people with your training and understanding.
Yes.
That is why I was making the statement I was making.
Yes.
And it would be foolhardy, I think, for any process to take place, move in the direction that we saw Wiper moving without. Yes, the politicians may have their say, but the serious input. Remember, the Wiper leader himself is senior counsel.
Yep.
The issue that revolves around the legal understanding of these issues, in my mind, is at the center stage. It's not the afterthought that counsel is trying to convince us it is.
It was there. It was there from the very beginning.
Yes.
I disagree with you, because if you are not chosen as a running mate, will you have any legal remedy? So it's not legal at all, because after they failed to choose him, you can't go to court and say they should have chosen me. So we could not have a legal remedy in mind.
Your place came in where just a few days after that we saw then that there was a legal move to go to court and remove Wiper from this whole Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition party. That is when now you would have stepped in.
But
did you then?
But I've asked you, have you seen any case filed by Wiper?
Please, did you hear what I said?
Yes, I heard you.
The next day there was they said they were going to make that move. Were you involved in that? Because I'm assuming that there was a thought process behind now this next announcement. It was an announcement and it was made public. It was not behind the Wiper curtain.
Or are we saying this announcement falls into the category of what you've been saying? It was a political announcement.
But in
made by lawyers.
In Wiper,
about going to court.
In Wiper, there are so many leaders who have the right and freedom of expression. And if I wake up today and say something, it doesn't mean that is the party position. So I think we are talking about Wiper as a party.
So let me ask you.
Yes.
You're not advisor to the Wiper party. You're advisor to Kalonzo Musyoka, the party leader.
Okay.
On that Sunday night, after Kinadan Maanzo have gone out and said, you know what, tomorrow morning we are going to court, what did you tell Kalonzo?
Eric, Dan Manzo is my senior, and I respect him a lot, even Mutola Jr. And I told you earlier that going to court was an option. So you can explore all the options available to you. One of them being going to court. So maybe the media misunderstood them, I don't know, but they were just saying one of the options available to Wiper as a party.
What was your advice?
Yes.
What was your advice to Kalonzo with regards to this particular move?
Of which move?
Of going to court.
And I'm repeating again, Eric, and I think I'm trying to be very clear.
I want to hear what Kevin told Kalonzo.
There was no move of going to court.
Okay.
Yes, because what was the reason of going to court?
In the declaration on Sunday night that tomorrow morning by 9 o'clock we will be going to the High Court to then initiate the removal of the Wiper party from this coalition agreement. It was said, plain as day, well in this case night, but it was said. The question is, having heard this, or did you not hear this?
I heard.
Okay. Having heard this, we didn't say that papers were lodged. We didn't say that anybody trotted off to the High Court. We are saying that it was said. So the assumption is that there was a thought process before this proclamation.
Yes.
Now, when you heard this, did you speak to the party leader? That's just the question.
Oh, yes. Yes. And we said
now,
that.
Now, what we're asking is, did you advise him in any one way? Did you say, ignore this completely, let them do whatever they're doing at party level, you just stay now? What did you say? as the legal advisor to
Yes.
Kalonzo Musyoka?
I said that there is no need of going to court. Because what remedy are we seeking? If it is him running for presidency, he can run. Nothing will stop him from running for presidency. So there was no need of going to court.
So you told him tomorrow morning, let's go on with our game plan.
Yes.
Go to SKM Center, make your announcement public.
Yes. And Eric, you saw the register of political parties writing to the IBC, advising the IBC not to clear or even receive the running mate name of Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. What did IBC do? IBC responded and said, we are guided by Article 137 of the Constitution and Section 23 of the Elections Act.
What do they say?
Which gives the qualifications of our president. There are only 4 qualifications. 1, a citizen by birth. 2, not a public officer. 3, no allegiance to any other state. 4, qualified to run as an MP. There's nowhere which says in the disqualification that if you're a member of a coalition party, you can't run for presidency. There's nothing which says that. And IBC responded appropriately. Because, the register of political parties and the IBC, both of them are independent from each other. The register of political parties is directed and led by provisions of the Political Parties Act. The IBC follows the directions of the Elections Act, but all of them must follow the provisions of the Constitution. And there is nowhere in the Constitution, Eric, where there could be any reason of limiting political rights of any Kenyan. Article 38 of the Constitution. There must be reasonable restrictions. So if I wake up today and join a coalition, because some of these coalitions are being formed, there could be provisions which you are not agreeable to, but for political reasons, you participate. But the Constitution is very supreme to all these other statutes. So you can't limit the political rights of a person. And also Article 36, Eric, and that's why we told Honorable Kalonzo that there's no need of doing all these legal battles of living, because you have freedom of association. You can be a member of this coalition. You could be having 3 clubs where you're a member. So freedom of association, you can be even in politics. You can be a member of this coalition. You can be a member of this other coalition, unless the coalition agreement of that particular coalition tells you can't be a member of more than 2 coalitions. You can.
I like your reasoning.
Let's take a break, City. It's 23 minutes to 10. We want to take a look at the traffic, the weather, and hear the business news. Our guest this morning is Kevin Katisia. Kevin is an advocate and he is Kalonzo Musyoka's legal advisor. We're talking about Kalonzo's game plan for the August 9th polls. What is it that he's being told by his various advisors, political advisors, legal advisors? Does he have other economic advisors, ground advisors? A man must have very many advisors. What is he hearing? Remember, the Kenya Revenue Authority is also advising you to jadiliane, tukubaliane, which means tuelewane. Tujadiliane, tuelewane, which is, come, let us have a conversation. You may have issues, tax disputes. Instead of taking it through the long legal process, they also have an advisor like Kevin. There's no point of going to court.
Yes.
Just come, meet with KRA. They have an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. It's faster. Within 90 days, this matter is resolved. And you have an arbitrator between you and KRA, discuss issues. It becomes a win-win situation for all. So ADR by KRA is the way to go.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to SpiceFM.
At KTN Home, we are all about the action, so you can enjoy unstoppable, unbeatable, unrivaled, unmatched movies from Hollywood. Get your popcorn ready. Tune in to KTN Home and buckle up to experience a new world of entertainment from the comfort of your living room. Tune in to KTN Home every Monday to Thursday plus Sundays and catch Hollywood's finest movies from 10 p.m. for the time of your life.
All right, cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 15 today. 18 degrees and mostly cloudy at 8 in Nakuru. Highs of 25 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 15 in a rainy Nyeri, currently at 19. And at 19 degrees, it's mostly cloudy in Eldoret. Highs of 23 and lows of 13. The rain continues in Mombasa at 29. Highs of 31 and lows of 25. While Malindi also raining at 28. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 26. At 22 degrees, it's mostly cloudy in Kisumu. Highs of 26 and lows of 18, and at 22, mostly cloudy in Kagambi. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 15. The sun is out now in Kampala at 21, highs of 25 and lows of 17, while it's mostly cloudy at 28 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 32. We'll see lows of 24. Johannesburg is sunny at 16, highs of 20 and lows of 8, and the rain showers in Lagos at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 24. 24 is what it is in Kinshasa and mostly sunny. Highs of 30 and lows of 22. It's a warm afternoon at 35 in Beijing. We'll see highs of 36. Monsoon season beckoning, lows of 18. And 14 degrees. Paris is cloudy, highs of 21 and lows of 9. London, cloudy at 15, highs of 20 and lows of 10. And we'll round things out Friday. In New York, it's 18 degrees and mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 24.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
All right, we're looking at heavy traffic still a little bit here and there on Jogger Road, but that's not too crazy. Whatever was happening on the Thika Superhighway, that has more or less dissipated. And Kiambu Road, just a little bit here and there. Looks like traffic ended right on time today, and we can get through the day without too much of a struggle through the day. However, talk to us. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Business News with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta has said the government has, over the last 10 years, significantly improved the welfare of senior citizens in the country. The head of state added that he is proud to be the first Kenyan president to institutionalize a framework for supporting senior citizens through the Inua Jamii program that currently has over 1 million beneficiaries in recognition of their contribution to the development of the nation. President Kenyatta spoke when he officially opened the landmark CBK pension towers in the Nairobi Central Business District. The Kenya Tea Development Agency is implementing a number of diversification activities with its farmers with a view to mitigating the revenue losses arising from climate change. The agency's General Manager for Sustainable Agriculture, Salesio Kaberia, said besides encouraging farmers to move from the usual cutting, tearing and culling tea to higher value specialty teas, the agency was also introducing other farming activities to boost their farmers' income. And FedEx Express has announced plans to introduce the first regularly scheduled service flights to Kenya in a bid to enhance its services to and from Africa. The weekly scheduled flights travels will start from Memphis, United States to Dubai, on to Johannesburg and Nairobi before connecting into the FedEx Express Middle East, Indian subcontinent and Africa air hub in Dubai, on to Milan and then Memphis. Kenya's economy relies on access to a fast and well-established network that quickly delivers sensitive products and goods from Kenya's producers to customers around the world. Members of the Public Relations Society of Kenya have elected new officials for the position of President, Treasurer and Assistant Secretary in their recently concluded annual general meeting. The newly elected team will be joining other council members to advocate and lobby for the enactment of the Institute of Public Relations and Communications Management Bill into law. During the Society's annual general meeting, Ariki Karwani from the Wikimedia Foundation was elected President, taking over the mantle from Wilfred Marube, CEO of the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency. And Kenyans are inching closer to getting lower power bills as an independent power producer is set to commence generating geothermal power from stream wells drilled in Nakuru. Sosian Menengai Geothermal Power, which starts operating in December this year, is one of the 3 independent power generating entities that the Geothermal Development Company awarded exclusive rights to set up steam plants under a build-own-operate model. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 9:45. Kenya's biggest conversation continues this lovely Friday morning. It's Eric, CT, and Ndu. Our guest is Kalonzo Musyoka's legal advisor, advocate Kevin Katisia. He's with us in the studio. What is Kalonzo's game plan for the August 9th polls? You sit in that think tank that advises Kalonzo on various things. One of them being, so you bring in your legal understanding, right?
Yes.
He's a senior counsel. There are other lawyers who are also in this think tank. I'd assume the deputy party chairman, Mutula Kilonzo Jr. is there. Dan Manzo, the MP, is there, has been working with Kalonzo for a number of years, plus others. And then there are those who bring in the politics, and they understand the politics and nuance, and the others who understand communication. Senator Enoch Wambua is a journalist. He understands communication. He understands the ground. He's a senator dealing with the ground. So all of you give Kalonzo the advice. So we've seen Kalonzo's move. He's seeking to be on the presidential ballot as candidate and as running mate. We have seen other Wiper leaders who also claim to be his advisors coming together and saying, in fact, we are advising Kalonzo to come back to Azimio. There are too many advisors for Kalonzo. Don't you get that sense?
Are there really ever too many advisors? President Yoweri Museveni has, I think, 140.
8.
Thank you very much.
See, those are too many.
No,
Are they not?
At what point are they too many? I'm sure. So long as they serve the purpose, or there is a purpose for which you have chosen them, it can't be too many.
It's like saying an entire village is your advisors.
But they actually are. If you look at our political system, and especially this little interesting aspect of public participation,
Yes.
they are.
There's a reason why
Yes.
there are courtiers in the King's Court, all
Yes,
right? And there are
yes.
various categories. Not every subject of the King's is an advisor to the King.
That is absolutely true, and that is why even courts have court jesters. It doesn't mean that their role is insignificant. Everyone has their role. Everyone has a role. Whether they play the role is a different matter. I said I liked your thinking, and it's for this reason.
Thank you.
You articulate the points you want to make very clearly. Now, I want you to help me understand this. If Senior Counsel Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka had been appointed, selected, nominated as the running mate, would we be having this discussion?
The answer is no. Yes.
We'll be having a different discussion.
Yes.
Or
Not
maybe
the
not at
discussion
all.
of him being on the ballot, but a discussion of something else.
Yes.
Oh, something else would have come up even thereafter.
course.
Oh my goodness. Something else would have been the issue if he was chosen as the running mate. Is that what we're saying?
Many cards up the sleeve, my friend. This,
That's something else into. Does it have to come
It doesn't
from
have to be.
him?
It could come from some of the other
somebody-
people that we are seeing
exactly.
these other issues coming
Yes.
from as well.
Yes, yes.
So that
yes,
could lend credence to this, what Eric is saying, that there's so many people that want to stir the honeypot, you know, or stir the hornet's nest, regardless of what the issue is. And you have to look at the optics of it, because then it seems as though there's a lot of indecision here, or that there's somebody who's not satisfied along the way, and then it casts negative light on the principle.
But Ndu,
Sir?
there's a view you've heard me express very many times on this show. And that is, when politicians make noise, please don't get carried away with it. What are they
It's
doing?
negotiation.
That's my view. Because some things can happen, and in your mind, they defy logic. Yes, they defy the logic you have. If you are to speak to them, it would make perfect sense. Which leads me to... Yes, please go ahead.
So, Kelvin,
Yes.
so had he been selected as the running mate, there, at least this particular conversation that is being had now would not be, this thing that we are all caught in the throes of, would not be. But what you're saying is that there's likelihood that there could be something else from the surrounding quarters. Why?
Because there's Munga said this is politics, and people politic every day, every minute, every second. And I agree with Munga when he says that when you are a leader, everybody who is eligible, whom you are leading, is your advisor. But I agree with Eric as well when he says the categories are different, because even according to our Constitution, Article 1, sovereignty belongs to the people. Even the president, every Kenyan is an advisor to the president. But of course, the categories differ.
Sure.
So
But then,
yes,
what does that say then for this individual? Because we can't also run away from the fact that the things that the people around you are saying or doing must shed light on you, whether you're negotiating or not. Must shed some kind of light on you. And the people who are out there speaking on your behalf, whether you sent them or not, the people who are out there speaking on behalf of the party, whomever it is, has it cast something on you. So I'm interested to know then how then he would continue to operate, knowing that these are the different things that are being cast then about his image.
and that's where Ndu, to answer you, that's where is the leader. And you know, as a leader, at the end of the day, even after receiving 1 million advices, you make your decision. But what's the decision? One decision. You make one decision as a leader.
The decision,
Yes.
Ndu, is he's on the ballot. See, he has already come out and said. Anything else that you hear other people saying, that is not Kalonzo speaking. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Kevin?
Yes.
When Kalonzo speaks, that is when Kalonzo speaks.
Okay, so,
Yes.
all right.
So
when others speak,
yes.
it is not necessarily Kalonzo speaking.
They are speaking on behalf of Kalonzo,
No.
but when Kalonzo speaks, then you know Kalonzo has spoken.
They are speaking their ideas or their opinions, not on behalf. Because by the end of the day, it is the leader to speak and to state his decisions. The others can give you ideas, but that does not mean that is exactly what he will speak.
Do you advise him as well that sometimes his decisions and reversing those decisions or going back on his decisions has an impact on him and his image?
That is true. That is true. And
For
remember,
example, on one moment he says, I can never support Raila. The next thing he says, you know what, in this country we must live together. I'm supporting Raila. The next thing he says, I am not going for an interview. Then he says, I will go and meet these people. It was not an interview. I am subjecting myself to this. And then the next thing, I am vying for president, I feel bit.
Yeah, but Eric, does it not show that this is someone who, in the light of new facts, is always open to changing his mind?
Which is a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a very good thing. It's a very good thing. These hard and fast positions that people sometimes have don't necessarily help.
So he's not a hardliner.
No, he's a hardliner. You see, the ability to change sometimes is actually much harder. It's far more difficult to have that flexibility of mind than to just be rigid in a simpler position with your stomach ache. You're just sitting there. But somebody who is able to talk and say, okay, fine, it's what I said, but given where we are now, fine, I will take this path. It is harder, much harder than simply staying in one position and holding it firm, irrespective. It's raining, so what? I'm still here. Okay, the sun is shining. I've heard. I'm still here. So
I said I am not moving.
Did you not hear me say? Okay, the only movement I'm going to make is I'm going to stop standing and sit down. But my position is still the same.
So this exposes a different character of Kalonzo's.
I think you must look at the positivity of it.
Well, you must try to get something out of it, shan't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that has been the hallmark of the politics in this country is the ability for people to sit down and talk. Now, the reason why progress is made is because when people talk, people move from the positions they were in. Now, the understanding we talk of that is arrived at is because people have moved from the position they started off with and they're now in a new position. So now when someone demonstrates this on the national arena, I don't understand why people want to look at it as negative when it is clear that he's doing something that most people have difficulties doing.
and I think the best description to that character is being selfless and being somebody who listens to his people. Because if you're a leader and you don't listen to your people, what does that mean? And now, picking from what you said about, at one point he said he will not support Raila, he gave the reason. Yeah, they agreed, and he even showed the agreement to the media. They agreed that whether Raila wins or loses, he will support him. Yeah, he gave that reason. But you see, in politics, people like reading what they want. They want to construe whatever they want to get from a particular statement. So I think, and I agree with Mr. Munga on the fact that as a leader, you must listen to the people. You must be selfless. What is good for the country? You know, you can have this position, and realize if I continue standing here, as you have said, maybe you'll lose energy and fall down, so you choose to sit down.
But the same place.
But same place. Yeah. So you must be able to also look at the interest of your people, not just your interest. Yeah. Look at, even if it was a selfish person, the position is being offered, for example, you can easily took it. But look at selfish people, the likes of Kitui Governor Gilo, who said, I want that position. What she wants is the position. But this is a person who is thinking above the position. Which position has this man not occupied?
The presidency.
Yes, but what about these other positions? Because for the presidency, he told Raila, I'll sacrifice. And he used the word Rosafi, the clean heart. That's a selfless person. Yeah. But these other positions, you can't give him any other position apart from the presidency. So he's not there to push his own selfish interest. He is selfless. And the idea of, and you want to mention it a little bit, the issue, the narrative people are trying to drive that he is indecisive, all these narratives. No, in politics, when somebody wants to finish you, they will brand you with all sorts of names. And remember when Honorable Kalonzo was launching his running mate, he said that, there are very few selfless leaders in this country. And if you look at the top class politicians, tell me which other politicians have been able to sacrifice like him. Tell me which other politician. He is selfless. Yeah, he looks at the interest of the people and say, if I make this decision, apart from myself, what is the impact of this on my people? Yeah, remember, he's a national leader, countrywide, even international.
Are you saying, Kevin?
Yes.
Is the leakage that you're giving us here that deal of just giving him the chief minister position did not have anything else in terms of development and benefits and positions in government for the greater people of Ukambani?
That's not what I'm saying, Eric. All I'm saying is that if I tell you, Eric, today, I'll give you maybe a car, for example. So that maybe you sacrifice your friends, you betray them, and you accept the car. That will be for your own selfish interest.
Yes.
But think of your friends. If I take this bribe and the consequences on my friends, what it means is that.
So what was the detrimental position of him? If he had accepted chief minister, how would he have sold out his people?
What is there for his people? Wiper has a large following all over the country. Yeah, and it is very clear and known to every Kenyan that in politics it is interest. What is there for my followers, for example?
What did he want?
No, not what he wanted, but what was there.
Okay, what did his people want?
No, of course, everybody wants a share of the cake.
And
the national cake.
And how much was he promised?
I can't answer that question,
because
Eric.
You see, the thing is, this share that we're speaking of, it appears to have been inadequate. Chief Minister wasn't going to cut it. It was either Deputy President or nothing. Is that what we're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
And remember, some of these meetings, they are high level. Some of us don't have the privilege of knowing what is being discussed. Remember, it is the meeting between the President, Right Honorable Raila Odinga and Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka. And it doesn't mean they tell us everything. They participate in high-level meetings. So whatever they discuss is
when he comes and tells you, I still didn't get what I wanted, you believe
yes,
he didn't get what he wanted.
Yes.
And when you advise, you don't look at this position that we are speaking of, do a little arithmetic about it and say, the benefit that we thought we would derive from the Deputy President's position, we may still derive from this.
For Chief Minister.
Yes.
Remember, some of us.
We wanted a four-legged goat. It's three-legged, but it's still a goat.
It's still a goat.
Yes.
We'll take it.
I think we are assuming that we advise on everything. Some of us are just on the legal part of it.
Okay.
So
you like
the next time you sit down with a political advisor here or a politician, they can answer you all those questions. But I can see where you're coming from.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Eric.
You have a good weekend.
Thank
when
you.
Mheshimiwa Kalonzo comes back to the country, say hello to him. Tell him we'd like him on the hot seat.
Thank you. I will tell
like you've said,
yes,
some of these questions are best answered by the man himself.
That is very true.
We'd like him to come and answer these questions.
That
himself.
message will be delivered.
Please advise him accordingly.
Thank you, Eric, Indu, and Munga, for having me today. And have a good day as well.
You too. City?
Thank you.
The Tanzanian proverb?
Yes, the Tanzanian proverb. Even flies have ears.
Not in high-level meetings.
Not even the one in the wall on high-level meetings.
Have a lovely weekend, folks. We'll be back on Monday. Enjoy yourselves. It's now 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Aseto. Azimio la Umoja, one Kenya running mate Martha Karua